Festive greetings, our legion of elves and reindeer. Welcome to Podcast of Storm, where social awkward snowmen, crazy stocking stuffers, and all around naughty list members convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Jolly Holly Bookworm, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone, and Merry Christmas Eve.
And
Obviously, we're not doing this on Sunday because, tomorrow being Christmas and all. To quote one of the Dresden Files short stories, it doesn't do for the boss to spend too much time at the office this time of year.
Right. And I am your host / Santa Claus Burglar, the brainstorm of pop culture. As I'm going to do tonight. For the record, if anyone wants to know the song I was playing for the intro, again, sorry, Dalton. It is Santa Wants to Slay. Just type that into YouTube. You'll find it there.
Wasn't that used in the Santa Slay movie at some point?
No. That's it was made last year by I actually don't know if anyone knows about this, but Black Rifle Coffee. They're like a veteran-owned coffee brewing company. Also, really funny people, like internet personalities as well. Yeah. So yeah, I like that song. I wanted to incorporate that in at least 1 week for this year. So
you should have done it. You should have done it the week of December 6th and 7th because that would have been Krampusnacht. But
yeah, there's also a link in the description below. So yeah. Oh, fun fact. It is fucking cold where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, it's freezing basically. Like I would argue like a half of the entire United States is just fucking sub-zero frozen right now. We're being chilled by goddamn liquid nitrogen.
Right. Okay. So hello, Ed Brewer, Global Cooling. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the climate changed, but nobody mentioned anything about it being another goddamn ice age.
Right. So pretty
And
much.
no, I'm not. And no, I am contractually obligated to point out that I am not complaining about that because I have certain alliances in winter things, and therefore I probably shouldn't complain about the cold.
Right. This Dawn sent this to me. She sent like 2 articles we're covering this week. It's by FoxNews.com. Christmas canceled. Parents and media go after holiday traditions. It's getting annoying. It's by Kindle Teets, I think that's how you say it. And this was published December 9th, 2022. Parents, media, and entertainment figures are criticizing many of the classic traditions behind Christmas. Yeah, what else is new?
Mm-hmm.
I probably should have sent out a. I don't think about it. I was supposed to do that, which is send out a link. Stop being a religious holiday a long time ago, says Ed. Yeah, you're right, Ed. Honestly, I never.
If it ever was one, to be
Yeah.
fair, because I mean, fucking Oliver Cromwell and the Protestant Reformation wanted to ban it because there were too many pagan pollutions in it, quote unquote. So,
So shall we? I want to kind of get through this one. With the holidays quickly approaching, parents, media figures, and the entertainment industry are criticizing many of the traditions behind Christmas. Even Santa himself has come under fire. Some Gen Z parents aren't allowing their children to believe he is real. I mean, okay.
are
I mean,
Gen Z people even old enough to have children at this point? Because like I'm like the very lowest ebb of millennial, and I'm only 27. Like most
uh,
people don't tend to have kids until they're like 25
uh,
unless they're frisky.
uh, you have no idea the libido of Gen Z people, man.
I mean this may be as may be, but like my mom was 17 when she had me, but I've always known that that was kind of the odd one out back in like Gen X and most of even the millennial generation. So
Um, I don't know. I'm not quite aware of that. I think it could be parents of Gen Z that they're more referring to, but didn't properly.
I mean, yeah, but they said Gen Z parents, so I assume that means parents who are members of Gen Z. Which, okay, so Gen Z starts in 1996, so I guess some of them might be parents now, but like my youngest brother came like right smack in the middle of Gen Z, and he is only 16, so there's that. And my middle brother, the one that's in between me and my youngest brother, is like just now old enough to drink. So, and he and his girlfriend don't have I don't have nephews yet. So I'm a bit confused here.
Right. Okay, so some Gen Z parents aren't allowing their children to believe he is real, as evidenced by the hashtag Santa isn't real, which has received nearly 19 million views on TikTok. Oh, right, TikTok. That's what we're basing this on. Okay.
Is because children young enough to have childlike wonder about Santa are totally going to be on fucking TikTok.
Well,
Actually, I mean that's plausible, I suppose, but God, that's depressing.
I mean,
But
I don't like TikTok isn't bad per se. I realize you have a slant against it, obviously, given what happened in the
yeah,
mass.
I literally can't use it because some assholes got it in their heads to hex the moon, and the Fairy Queen, who I have a bargain with, was very, very
Upset.
viscerally against this. So I just, for my own safety, avoid using TikTok because I really would rather not be sick the wild hunt upon this time of the year.
um, there are certain. To be fair, I'm gonna say like it's kind of like Vine in a way, like New Day Vine, I suppose.
Yeah, but here's the other thing.
Most of it's shit. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Here's the other thing about this whole, hashtags on TikToks ruining Christmas and everything. Any Gen Zer who is like savvy and cynical enough to use TikTok is probably the kind of smart for their age kid who worked it out on their own and now spend their time ruining it for everyone fucking else. Because one of the annoying things about Christmas is we all know that there's a certain percentage of people who work out that Santa isn't a thing early, and then proceeds to act like it makes them superior and ruin it for everyone who does still believe well into like their preteens.
I mean, yeah, it's just like I don't.
It's basically the like new atheism of the playground set. The same kids that work out that Santa doesn't exist early and then proceed to ruin it for everyone else are the same people who then grow up and become smart mouth atheists who ruin any sort of spirituality for everyone else. So that is a thing, but it's still annoying. But my point is that those are the kinds of people who you would imagine would be using TikTok. And anyone who is innocent enough to be dissuaded by that hashtag might also be invested enough in the idea of Santa to argue with the hashtag because that's the thing. Just because a hashtag says something doesn't mean that everyone would automatically become convinced of it. If you're a child who genuinely does want to believe in Santa, there are ways to rationalize it. And I know because I was like 13 when my mom finally had to straight up tell me because I had mentally worked it out how it could be possible because when I was 9, I was into theoretical physics, and after that, I was into like magic and philosophy and shit. So I was smart enough to figure out the logistics of okay, if this is possible, then how would it be possible? And between my knowledge of theoretical physics and my knowledge of magic, it was fairly easy to work out how it could be possible.
Right. So, I still believe Santa in some form.
Yeah, and yeah, even then, even now, there is an entity behind this whole Yuletide feeling thing, or like Christmas spirit thing, if you will. Your Odins, your Holly King, your Grandfather Frost, etc. Like just because he doesn't do the chimney gifting reindeer rigmarole, that doesn't mean there isn't a spirit of Yule or of winter who oversees the sort of feeling of Santa Clausing.
Right. So, yeah, I don't really. I mean, to be fair, like parents telling their children that Santa Claus isn't real. I mean, that's kind of par for the course for being a parent. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, yes, but I think the difference that Fox News is trying to highlight here is there are parents who at least let their children believe for a little while and then tell them, and then there are parents who wait until their children figure it out for themselves, which is probably the most healthy of the options. Um, but these parents are just not engaging with the tradition at all. Like they will not let their children ever believe that there's such a thing. I think is what the difference is, and that's bullshit because either you're going to turn your children very cynical and depressed at an early age. Pro tip: that's how you create people with narcissistic personality disorder. Trauma at a early age fucks children over. But also, once again, you're ruining it for the people who do want their children to engage with the tradition in some way. Like because as we just went over, there's a certain percentage of sanctimonious little bastards who just because they've figured something out, they now have to spread it with everyone because they think it makes them superior or some shit.
No, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
I will say though, I have found some entertaining people that are like DC comic nerds. On like it just depends on where you're searching, I suppose.
No, I know there is desirable or interesting stuff on TikTok, but fortunately for me, a lot of TikToks actually get posted to YouTube
Yeah,
now. Like
that's, it's like a Vine thing. I get it.
yeah, they're YouTube TikTok compilations, so I don't have to risk getting hypothermiaed to death by Queen Mab just to see the interesting
I
shit on TikTok.
I end up getting a lot of like funny pet stuff.
Yeah, the only one who keeps for some fucking reason sending me TikToks, even though he knows I have very practical reasons for not wanting to use it, is Chrono, and I keep telling him, stop sending me shit from TikTok. I can't use it.
Wow. Surprised you were surprised by that.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he does it. I'm surprised that the many times I've mentioned to him, you need to stop doing this because I can't, stick myself with a needle every time I look at a TikTok video to pay my blood debt every time you send me one of these.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, many parents cite concerns that once their children find out Santa's magic is a myth, they'll be traumatized.
I mean, that's honestly kind of a fair criticism because
I was gonna say that's a bit of a two-edged sword, to be fair.
I mean it is, but I can understand the logic to a degree because unfortunately children are very good at discerning things. And it's just like with the um why I hate magic shows principle of like we need to stop we need to stop tricking gullible people into believing in fake magic because then once they realize that there is such a thing as people who fake it, a lot of people for some reason look at that and go, well, if the stage illusionist who calls himself a magician is fake, then clearly all of it is fake. Or to use this particular example, if this, very childish, very simplistic version of Santa isn't real, then that means that nothing metaphysical or spiritual is real. And yeah, no, those don't follow. It's why I will never say, assuming I ever have kids or even nieces and nephews, I will never use the phrase ghosts, ghosts don't exist or monsters don't exist or whatever because I've come up with a better way of dealing with this. If I ever have nieces or nephews or my own children depending on how the situation goes that have the monster in the closet phase, rather than trying to talk them out of it by saying there's no such thing as monsters or there's no such thing as ghosts or whatever, I'm going to teach them, okay, you think you're being harassed by a monster? Here are the methods you can use to protect yourself from these things. Like I liken it to the principle of rather strike a light than curse the damn darkness. I.e., rather than telling children that there's nothing supernatural out there that can hurt them or there's nothing supernatural out there, period, I teach them how to defend themselves. I.e., what's better when dealing with a demon? Trying to convince yourself demons don't exist? Or studying fucking exorcism. I've always leaned into the latter option.
Yeah, shotgun full of rock salt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it works quite like it does in Supernatural, but it's still better than basically being a metaphysical ostrich and
That does an interesting question because I'm aware that salt is a thing that can affect certain supernatural creatures or all of them.
yeah.
Um, any kind of salt, or does it have to be rock salt, like
Um, the purer the salt, the better, because the various minerals that you might find salt mixed with change the way that the material of the salt interacts with the energies. Like the whole reason why salt is said to be effective against spirits is because salt is basically a naturally occurring crystal, and crystals tend to um, impact beings made of energy, which is most spiritual entities. Um, Whereas if you mix salt with various other minerals, like let's say you had a salt mixed with um, another crystal or something, it would probably still be effective to some degree, but it would depend on the crystals or other minerals that you mix the salt with. Like there are plenty of crystals that are also effective against spirits, but number one, it might change depending on the kind of spirit you're dealing with, whereas salt is kind of a panacea for everything. And number two, um, it does depend on which crystal, because some crystals might actually make the malefic energy more potent, which would be bad. In any case, moving on.
Okay, yeah, it's weird tangent. Par for the course, I assume. But anyway, yeah. Mother Sierra McKenzie went viral for a video she posted on TikTok saying that she wouldn't be lying to them, her kids, about Santa. Nor would she be taking them for pictures with Santa or including any presents under the tree from Santa. Motherfucker, that just sounds like you're a terrible parent, to be fair.
Yeah, and this is the problem, and this is why I pointed out earlier. There's a difference between parents that kind of force the child's hands too early, which I would still say is bad, but there's a difference between that and not letting them engage with that at all. Because here's the thing, even though ideas like this are fiction to some degree, to a large degree, you need to teach children that matter is not all there is to some degree. Because even if you're a hardcore militant, new atheist secularist, even if there's a reason why it's good for children to engage with ideas of metaphysics. And that's because it essentially allows the brain to build the parts of it that think in terms of abstraction and logic rather than straight up materialism, i.e., it teaches children to think ahead of just what's in front of them. Because while I hate the phrase that I've heard some people say of the future isn't real yet, because that's stupid, being able to plan in the abstract is a skill that children need to have, and therefore they need to have some conception of the world is more than just what's right in front of my face physically. And ideas like magic or metaphysics are useful for that, even if you want your child to grow up as a dyed-in-the-wool new atheist secularist. Letting them engage in creative play or just creativity in general, and in most cases, that's going to take the form of metaphysical abstraction when they're this young, is a good thing, especially if you at all want your children to exhibit creativity. That's another benefit of my solution of rather than teaching children there are no monsters, I'm going to teach them how to hunt monsters because not only does that lean into their sense of creativity, but it teaches them the difference between a monster that doesn't exist and the potential for a monster that does. And it teaches them active problem solving, i.e., rather than sit there and try to go, la la la, I can't hear you to make your problems go away, find a fucking solution to your problems. And if your problem is alleged to be some kind of monster or demon, break out the salt, break out the candles, break out the fucking, you know, spiritual protective iconography and etc. That's a that's a better and more proactive solution than just convince yourself there are no such things because that totally will make you safer. You know, just pretending your problems don't exist will totally make your problems go away. Derp. Moving on.
Right. Telling kids that Santa is real is a lie, and I don't believe in building my kids up on a lie. Again, terrible parent.
Okay, and
Hold
if
on. Let me finish the full stuff.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Can post your kids can still enjoy the magic of Christmas without believing in Santa. Okay, that's a fair point, but don't. I guess don't if you want to reiterate your point from earlier.
Yeah, believing in abstract shit to some degree is healthy for building abstract thinking in general and creativity and imagination in particular.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, but there's only so much imagination your children can have if you teach them that the inert matter that exists in front of you is all there is. I I don't like this particular quote because I think it's disingenuous kind of in the opposite way. But to quote a line from Terry Pratchett's Hogfather, as practice, you have to start believing in the little lies. That way, you can learn someday to believe in the big lies, like love, like compassion, like principle, like philosophy, etc. And I'm well aware I butchered that. I didn't have the exact quote handy. But my my only problem with him in this case is that I don't think things like love and compassion and justice and mercy are lies. Uh, Quite frankly, I don't even believe that a lot of the child fantasies are lies. I think they're just half truths. And that's the other solution that I was going to offer before Brainstormer said he wanted to finish the thing. If you're so interested in teaching your children, no lies and no falsehoods and no abstractions, fine. Again, that's why my solution is: you think you have a monster in your closet? Here's a book on monster hunting. You think you're being chased by a demon? Learn exorcism, etc. If you're so worried about not teaching your children lies, which is a fair point, and I agree, that's part of the reason why I hate illusionists is I don't like corrupting their ability to understand things like metaphysics and magic by allowing someone who doesn't do any such thing to erroneously claim they do. But that's neither here nor there. But there is a history of the idea of Santa. There's Odin, there's the Holly King, there's Nicholas of Myra, for whatever that's worth. If you want to teach children about a realistic version of Santa, show them that. Show them the Librarian's Christmas special, for crying out loud. That's a perfect way of transitioning your children from believing in Santa as the, chimney, gift giver, reindeer, all that business, toys, etc., to believing in him sort of as this abstract spiritual entity. That would be how I would soft pedal the whole Santa not being real thing if I was forced to. Um, because the just because the corporate Coca-Cola Santa isn't real doesn't mean that Odin isn't real. Doesn't mean that the Holly King isn't real. Doesn't mean that the Yule spirit in general isn't real, and so on. So if you truly don't want to tell your children any lies, teach them about the real historical Santa. Or if you're truly the most secular of secular persons, you could at least teach them about that there was at one point a Saint Nicholas. Duh. Like if you really need there to be a person attached to this, then there you go, Nicholas of Myra, circa about I think 1500. Moving on.
yeah. Okay. Another mom, Chloe Mel, said that she also won't label presents as from Santa under her tree because she doesn't like the idea of lying sick, lying sick, what? To her kids or worrying they would get better things from Santa than other kids, according to a TikTok. Okay, so just kind of an example thing. To be fair, I kind of knew Santa again, like the general Santa that most kids grew up knowing about.
The Coca-Cola Santa, the marketing Santa, basically.
Yeah. Um, I kind of had a feeling he wasn't. I kind of knew he wasn't real around 9 or so. Well, a little earlier, but it's because like then we would put like little pieces of paper on the gifts we wrapped, and it said who it was from.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I figured it out. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still see Christmas as a wonderful thing. Obviously, just family get together and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Granted, I do like Don said, I believe at least there is an entity that is responsible that is like a herald of Christmas
Yeah,
and the time of it.
yeah.
So yeah, but that's because like
Again, one of the best portrayals of this particular Santa is in the Librarians episode, The Librarians and Santa's Midnight Ride. The idea that he doesn't give physical gifts, but he gives the spirit of goodwill. And it wouldn't surprise me if one of the reasons why parents can get away with the Santa con for so long is because that entity is lending them some of his juice when they're playing the game, basically. Because you'll find that parents are often a lot cheerier when they're doing the whole Santa routine than they are most of the rest of the year, and I don't think that's entirely a coincidence. That doesn't mean you can't fight it off, but why would you want to fight off feeling better while you're trying to do something nice for the people in your life? Is the important question. Moving on.
I was gonna say something, but it feels like it feels like I'm getting too personal
No, go ahead.
because they don't have anyone to love in their life.
I mean,
That's why I didn't
or
want. Yeah, that feels.
or they just don't seem to have an understanding of what love is. And part of me does wonder if part of the reason why is because either their parents spoiled them too much and then decided to take it away when it was time for them to quote unquote grow up, which would be traumatic, or maybe it's because their parents are dyed in the wool ideologues just like them and they wouldn't let their children enjoy the holiday. Because here's the thing, guys. Childhood is the time when you get first exposed to what the world can be. That's why it's very important that we don't traumatize children. Full stop. Like I don't get think of the children very often, but when it comes to childhood trauma, I am very much think of the fucking children. Because if your first exposure to what the world is bitter and cynical and miserable and tragic, what could a child possibly, not saying no one could bounce back from that, but your first impressions count for a lot, especially with children because their brains are still
Yeah,
building. So like in my opinion, we should go out of our way to give children as much good things as we can when we can, so that they know that no matter how hard life gets later on, there's still good in the world. Now, granted, I'm an advocate of stop having this like cut and dry dichotomy between adulthood and childhood because, quite frankly, it's often bullshit and overly cynical and doesn't make sense. I.e., just because life can be miserable doesn't mean it should have to be. Um, and so on. Like, i.e., just because we will eventually have to get used to the idea that life isn't fair doesn't mean that's an excuse to make it deliberately unfair. We should do our best to make sure that childhood is good and that adulthood stays as good as we can make it, basically, is what I'm saying.
uh, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Okay. Another mother and family writer, Laura Jackal, penned a piece for Mamma Mia in which she detailed the 6 Christmas traditions she was planning on canceling this year. Uh, do my kids actually want to wear the matching festive pajamas? She asked. Do I care to trapeze around the shops, searching for nice ones in their size so they can take part in this Weird tradition sponsored by capitalism. Oh my god, shut the fuck up.
I didn't realize that like Christmas pajamas was such a common thing.
Yeah, I never wore those growing up.
My mom did this, but I never knew it was a thing that a lot of people did. In fact, I always thought it was a little weird that mom did it. But to be fair, I wouldn't trade it for anything because it was the one gift that my mom gave us that was actually quote unquote from her. Um, and even now, the gifts we open on Christmas morning, i.e., the stuff that was actually on our Christmas list, um, she doesn't give us until Christmas morning, and then and of course she puts it all under the tree so it looks all pretty and Yuletide and like Santa came, even though we're all old enough now where obviously we're not expecting that. But and my brothers are kind of fucking Scrooges, which baffles me to no end, but that's neither here nor there. Um I still keep the spirit alive as much as I can. But in any case, mom always gives us one gift that's from her on Christmas Eve when we're giving each other a gift from each other. And then of course Christmas morning is Christmas morning. But yeah, my mom always did do the Christmas pajamas thing. And then once we got all too old so that she couldn't find the same pajamas for everyone, because that was another thing she did. She wanted to make sure we all matched. Um, and later I found out that the reason she did this was partly because otherwise we would have woken up on Christmas morning in our underwear and she couldn't get pictures of us opening our gifts, which I understand. But she moved on from Christmas pajamas to Christmas ornaments, and now every year on Christmas Eve, after we give um, each other our stuff from each other, and then we give mom our stuff to her from us, she always gives us a personalized Christmas ornament, and it's all very special. But yeah, I didn't realize this was a widespread thing. I thought that was just something mom came up with, but I guess she got it from somewhere.
Mm. Uh,
Sorry for that complete and utter aside, but
I mean, it's weird. For a time, like for a few years, I did wear Christmas pajamas. Granted, they were just really my pajamas that I wore for Christmas.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and I don't really wear pajamas, which is weird because I'm wearing pajama pants right now, but I more use them like sweats.
Yeah, I don't wear pajamas either. Although recently I've taken to the habit of just sleeping in my clothes because I only bathe or shower twice a week. Um, mostly to save on my mom's having to do laundry, because she absolutely hates laundry and I don't blame her. Um, but also to spend the least amount of time possible um naked or without my bow ties as possible because bow ties are cool. I
Okay.
hate taking them off.
Um,
But
yeah.
yeah, no, for most of my childhood, the only day where I ever did wear pajamas was on on Christmas Eve.
Right. Yeah. This is stupid. I mean, I can understand the hassle. Although, are you just like every year? Are you buying new? Like, I feel like there is more context needed for that.
Yeah, like I know that's what my mom did. She always got us a new pair of Christmas pajamas every year when we were kids.
I'm not gonna lie. That feels a bit excessive.
Well, I mean, sure, but in her defense, there was always, we grew or outgrew things in the
No,
year because children.
I don't honestly. I don't even think I'm gonna want to judge because I'm still wearing shirts I've had. Well, I wear a shirt that I've had since freshman year of high
Yeah,
school.
and I mean to be fair to be fair to your point, like I stopped growing. Actually, no, I basically didn't grow at all right up until my senior year in high school, and then I shot up like 2 or 3 inches during college.
Right.
Um, but
Um.
other than that, I haven't really done much growing in my life,
Anyway.
or it's been gradual enough that I haven't noticed.
Anyway, shall we?
Yep, moving on.
All right. Jackal also said that she plans to ditch Elf on the Shelf this year and suggests that parents tell their kids that Santa recalled your elf to help with present sorting or that it died. What the fuck? Okay, one, I don't know a single person who has an elf on the shelf. I'm aware of an elf on the shelf, but I've never had one. Like in my entire life, I've never seen an elf on a shelf.
The only of my brothers that ever had an elf on the shelf was my youngest brother, because it was something that came about long after me or my brother was in the age bracket to have one. Which is kind of weird and funny, because I honestly feel like the elf on the shelf might end up backfiring on a lot of parents, because it is such a silly plastic elf thing. It might end up convincing kids that Santa isn't real at a younger age than they otherwise would be engaged with, because it is very. I hate this. I hate that I'm gonna have to use this phrasing, but it's a very capitalist affectation of the season, rather than something that arrives organically. Like it's a wholly manufactured tradition instead of one that came about organically. So I never understood how it became such this universal tradition. But yeah, my brother had one, but and my mom would often enlist me and my brother to help pull pranks on my younger brother with it. But and it did actually result in this one accidental Christmas tradition we found out, because one year my mom had the elf TP the Christmas tree. Like she wrapped it around the Christmas tree like it was garland. And we kind of just left it there because we realized that we actually liked like the imagery of like white ribbon around the Christmas tree, even though it was toilet paper. And so my mom has ever since, instead of using regular garland, she wraps the Christmas tree in ribbon.
Right.
But anyway, moving on.
Are you eating?
Yes.
That's the first.
My mom brought me a tin of butter cookies just a bit ago, so I'm munching on Christmas cookies on Christmas Eve. Sue me.
I used to make Christmas cookies.
I mean, there's nothing in this world better than a fresh baked iced sugar cookie on Christmas. Like nothing in the world.
I'm sorry, like just going a bit off topic again, but I'm remembering the scene from Violent Night where Santa eats the homemade cookies that what was the girl's name again?
I don't remember her name, but the little girl I remember her.
Trudy.
Yeah, Trudy. Yeah.
Well, Gertrude, but then we'll call it Trudy.
Which I can understand, because a little girl named Gertrude would not get
I remember
would get bullied as a child, probably.
that because the grandmother said that sounded like a hooker's name. Trudy.
Wasn't the granddaughter named after her grandmother?
I don't remember.
Because I remember she was named after someone in the family, and the fact that they shortened it is what pissed her off.
But yeah, I just remember that scene, like Santa enjoying those homemade cookies.
I mean, to be fair, the only thing that's more Christmassy than iced sugar cookies is probably gingerbread, which I actually hadn't had until I want to say like 2 years ago on Christmas. I finally my mom always goes to the store like Christmas Eve night and gets us all kinds of cookies and cakes and basically things to snack on while we're opening each other's gifts and stuff.
Right.
And last year she asked me if I wanted anything in particular, and I mentioned gingerbread. So I finally tried gingerbread a couple of years ago. So,
Right.
and it's delicious, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay, I thought I was gonna sneeze. God damn it. All right. Other Christmas.
You're probably gonna do it mid-sentence.
Yeah. Other Christmas traditions she plans to cancel include sending cards to anyone outside immediate family, the forced Santa photo and purchase scenes festive site. Okay, that last one's fucking bullshit. Okay,
It's all of this is just literal like misanthropy. God damn it! Like they just don't.
okay. I've never, to be fair, my family's never sent cards. I don't think we've ever had the budget to do so.
No, I don't think we've ever sent cards either. I don't understand. Like that seems to be like a very like bourgeois suburban thing. Like
Oh
it
yeah,
seems to be
totally,
something.
totally.
It
That
seems to be something that's like expected in like suburbia or like gated communities of like you're supposed to be a good homemaker and send Christmas cards, but
yeah,
like
this is
I've
that.
never understood it.
As much as fucked up as my neighborhood is, it's better. I will say it's probably better than suburbia. So much.
And as much as sometimes living in the goddamn middle of nowhere in like the most rural Texas-ish part of Pennsylvania bothers me sometimes, I wouldn't li as much as I enjoy like the iconography of suburbia, because I do, I wouldn't live in a suburb if you paid me $1 million and put a gun to my head.
I mean,
Not
visiting there maybe, but no.
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't live in suburb. And
And
again, it's funny because given my extravagant like old world personality and my quirks and stuff, I probably could make a suburban like I could basically be the male version of Brie Vandekamp from Desperate Housewives if I wanted to, probably. But all of this like that's the thing. I like putting extra effort into things, but the minute it becomes something that's expected, I switch off. Like
right,
if my extra effort turned into and now you have to do it, now it's just the default. Now it's the starting place. I'd tell you to go fuck yourself.
right. Anyway, uh, yeah. Everything besides the purchasing festive snacks, I get. But come on, like,
That's one of the best parts of the holiday is gorging yourself on everything you won't let yourself have the rest of the year.
although I will say I fuck fruitcake, man. Just,
I don't mind the taste of it actually. Like I'm one of the only people I know that doesn't mind the well, okay, it does depend on the kind of fruitcake
I think
because some,
I think I've been given bad fruitcake. To be fair, I'm
yeah,
not
but like
not
the
a big guy on fruit in general. So
yeah, the most like stereotypically fruitcake is called pan forte. It's something that began in like the early Middle Ages and it became heavily associated with Christmas. And I've made them um in my high school culinary class. We made fruitcake. And it was pretty tasty. Now, granted, the like mass market fruitcake with all the fucking preservatives and shit in it. That stuff you shouldn't try. You shouldn't touch with a 10-foot fucking pole. Either get it, either get it fresh made from like a Walmart bakery or just a bakery in general, or make it yourself, or just don't fruitcake at all. But I don't hate fruitcake. Fruitcake's cool. Anyway, moving on.
mm, uh, okay. Fox News contributor Joe Concha. For the record, if I say any of these names wrong, I'm sorry. I'm just terrible with names.
He's not good at names, folks. He's
Either
really not good at names.
either remembering them or pronouncing them, I'm terrible with it. So
He mispronounced my last name for 6 months before I actually said something.
can't believe you let me say it for 6 fucking months, man.
The reason is because everyone gets it wrong. So I was just like, you know what? Everyone gets it wrong. I'm not gonna shit all over him because he got it wrong. And then I was like, wait, does he not know that he said it wrong? I probably should say something. Fuck.
Anyway, Fox News contributor Joe Concha said that he never expected parents to open a new front in the war on Christmas in the name of virtue signaling. And thanks to the media and woke corporations, we're stuck with this constant barrage of political correctness and it's getting annoying. He added. I mean, he's not wrong on that account. To be fair.
Okay, he's not wrong, but I will catch him out on one thing. This whole while there's some truth in the idea of the war on Christmas from the like the social justice types or the establishment media types. I want to point out once again for the record that you Bible thumping Christians obsessed with your war on Christmas, you need to look in the one thing you need to look in the fucking history books, and the other thing you need to look in the fucking mirror. Because if there could be said to be such a thing as a war on Christmas, the first frontier in the war on Christmas was the Protestant Reformation. Because a lot, and by that I mean a fuck ton, of Protestants wanted to ban both Halloween and Christmas on the grounds that they were too pagan. And in case you're screaming at me right now, well, yeah, but that was 500 years ago or some shit. Give us 5 minutes, because when we get to the next article of the evening, I will once again throw this in your face. Just because, yes, the social justice moralists are having their way with Christmas and wanting to shit all over it, and that being true, doesn't mean that Christianity is the victim of it, because Christianity fucking started the war on Christmas. Thank you very much. If it weren't for Charles Dickens, Oliver Cromwell, and what the fuck was his name? Bradford in Plymouth in 1659. Governor, I think it was William Bradford, in Plymouth in 1659. They tried to ban it on the grounds that it wasn't Christian enough. So you can miss me with all this. Christmas is being attacked and Christianity is the victim. No, fuck you. If anything, Christmas is the victim of constant Bible bashing from both you, i.e., the hyper traditionalist Christians, and the social justice moralists. Moralists in general seem to have a problem with any holidays that are rooted in celebration of nature's plenty or like hedonistic excess, because you just don't enjoy fun or things that have existed longer than your fucking religions, whether they be secular or whether they be supernatural in nature. Moving on. Unless Rainstormer went somewhere. Yeah. I think Rainstormer went somewhere. But in the meantime, I just want to make it perfectly clear.
Yeah, I went to grab food.
Okay, no problem.
For the record, it's just a bowl of fries. So
Yeah, but TLDR, I mean that's a bit depressing on Christmas fucking Eve, but we're moving on.
I'm having Christmas dinner tonight. We're just so.
Oh, you guys eat late too? That makes sense. Anyway,
Tomorrow.
the TLDR version, and then we're gonna move on, is Christmas might be subject to a war, but Christians are definitely not the victims of it. Because quite frankly, Christianity is just as responsible for demonizing and criminalizing Christmas as the modern day wokesters are. Moving on.
Why is the person not eating fries on Christmas Eve?
I thought that was all you were eating tonight, and I was like, oh, you don't get to have the like full spread and like.
Yeah, we're gonna eat tomorrow on Christmas. We got all the stuff. We just we're just eating something simple tonight.
Yeah, we nosh on all kinds of shit on Christmas Eve, and then we still have Christmas dinner tomorrow. So that's all I was pointing out. Like again, I'm sitting here eating a holiday themed tin of Christmas cookies.
Yeah, well, to be fair, there's also sloppy joes, but I'm not really hungry for them, so fries will do fine.
Fair enough.
Plus they're fresh fries.
Anyway,
moving
forward.
Other targets of the Christmas backlash include reboots of classic shows and movies. I mean, yeah, obviously that's always going to happen.
Hollywood is as lousy now with fucking social justice moralizing as it used to be with TradCon moralizing.
Right. Right. NBC News culture critic Annie Bundle criticized Apple TV's Spirited. I think that's the one with. We should have covered that trailer. I forgot about that one. With Ryan Reynolds, who plays like a Scrooge character, and Will Ferrell, who plays like a spirit.
Right. The like 512th modern take on the Scrooge mythos.
And Netflix's Scrooge: A Christmas Carol for the show's insistence on preaching this secular myth of the billionaire turned benefactor at a time when the news is full of stories to the contrary, which indicates both musical adaptations hit the wrong key. What the fuck?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Christmas Carol is not anti-capitalist. It's not. And I'm saying that both to the social justice left and the TradCon right. Christmas Carol is not anti-capitalist. There are several examples of people in the world of A Christmas Carol who are wealthy, one of which would include Scrooge's
Nephew.
Patron Fezziwig when he was still in an apprenticeship, and his own nephew Fred, who hires Bob Cratchit's son at a very high wage. And also, I want to point this out and make this perfectly clear. Scrooge is not portrayed as a money-grubbing, 80s style cigar-chomping fat cat. And I'm pointing this out because if you remember correctly, in many versions of A Christmas Carol, including the original version, I'm just saying this because, in some versions it gets cut out, Scrooge doesn't even like spending money on himself. He doesn't live high on the hog in a uber capitalist, like, again, Gordon Gekko 80s-esque style capitalist wet dream. He essentially is so money grubbing and so focused on saving money at all costs that he doesn't even spend money on himself. As Fred points out in several versions of the story, who benefits from who does he harm through his ill whims? Only himself. And of what good is his money to him? He doesn't even make himself comfortable with it. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the general gist of it. The point being, Scrooge is not the arch capitalist because he doesn't even make himself happy or comfortable with all of his money. He lives like a fucking pauper because he's so focused on the idea of saving money that he doesn't actually do anything with money.
Yeah, now that I think about it, almost every depiction I've seen of Scrooge when they go into his house, it's always decrepit, old, kind of falling apart.
Yeah, the line from the original short story is, candles and lanterns were expensive, and Scrooge did not want to put up the expense. Darkness was cheap, and Scrooge liked it. And the same thing with regards to his food, like his gruel that he eats in almost every version of the story. Gruel is something that people literally in the workhouses and prisons that Scrooge constantly decries throughout the entire proceedings normally feed on. So it's not like he's living a high on the hog arch Victorian capitalist lifestyle. He's so poor in spirit that he actually kind of hates himself and therefore forces himself to suffer through nothing, even though he doesn't ever spend his money, and nor does he have anyone to spend his, like, it's not like he's saving his money for his kids or his business in future, because he only, in the original story, he only has the one employee, his clerk Bob Cratchit, and or at least that we see in his office, and he I may I be struck by lightning if he ever intended to give any of that money to his nephew Fred when he died. So like he's literally accruing wealth that he will never use. He's not reinvesting it in his businesses. He's not making himself comfortable with it. He doesn't plan on sending it to his heirs or his family when he's dead. He the lesson of A Christmas Carol, if there could be said to be one, is not anti-capitalist. It's anti-misanthropy. It's anti-nihilism.
Right.
That's why I think it's good that Christmas Carol isn't particularly religious, because it's not trying to pander to the hyper Christian people, especially considering that in Dickens' day those people wanted to ban Christmas full stop. It's trying to bring back the, it must be said, pre-Christian, quasi-polytheistic excuses for excess and celebration and constructive hedonism, basically. And it's teaching Scrooge to not be such a nihilistic fucking stick in the mud. To actually make himself happy, and if he has room to make other people happy, so much better, because, you know, people tend to be happy in the company of other people, who would have thought. And for as much as Christmas Carol bashes on capitalism, my dear tradcons, it bashes on the idea of the welfare state more than it bashes on the idea of capitalism. I mean, who does Scrooge hate more in the prologue to the whole spirit shenanigans? His fellow capitalists? Or does he spend most of Act 1 bitching about how heavily taxed he is, and how he hates paying for the prisons and the workhouses, even though he wants everyone who's too poor to darken his doorstep to go there? Anyway, moving on.
I will say this. Haven't seen both trailers. Not Spirited. I saw on my own account.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've seen it too. We just never got around to covering it for whatever reason.
I completely forgot about it, to be fair. It doesn't look like it good. It doesn't look good.
No, I mean, there are plenty of versions that have modernized, like a Scrooge or Scrooge-like person set in the modern day, but this one looks very like over the top and meta and cringe.
Yeah, it just didn't look good. We covered the trailer for Scrooge Christmas Carol last week, and
certainly looks better than Spirited. I will give it that.
Obviously, but really the problem kind of lies with the trailer, and just it didn't feel like it was grabbing.
It decided it knew how to do dialogue better than and jokes better than a story that has existed for a literal century now and has been redone so many times, and yet we all still will shell out money to see every new version that comes out, pretty much. Although I will say my favorite version of A Christmas Carol that I've ever seen, and I've seen like 50 different versions, including several of the black and white ones, is still the George C. Scott one from 1984.
Right. But yeah. Although, all right, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
In a year when it seems nearly every monopolistic company is laying off workers, the cathartic comeuppance of a hard-hearted billionaire makes cultural sense, she added. But neither film is willing to even admit its cruel corporate czar is a bad person, as if the producers fear insulting the rich men who run their respective streaming services.
Because Christmas Carol is not anti-capitalist, and I don't care how many people on the social justice left get mad that it's not anti-capitalist enough, and I don't care how many tradcons get mad that it's too anti-capitalist, because the target of ire in Christmas Carol is not capitalism, it's misanthropy and human misery, and probably to some degree the church, because again, there's a reason why most of the imagery in A Christmas Carol is more pagan than it is Christian, because the church were the moral busybodies of Dickens' day, and if they had their druthers, Christmas would have been banned. Moving on. Why are those butter cookies so delicious? Every year somebody gives me a tin of them, and every year I wonder to myself, why do I only eat these on Christmas? And then I remember, oh, because you like saving things for their appropriate times. And fair enough, me. But moving on though. I assume Brainstormer left to take care of his plate.
I'm back.
I will.
I was getting seconds, and I assumed you'd talk longer.
Ah.
You usually do, so.
I figured you were taking care of your plate. But anyway, moving on.
Kind of right. Again, I was getting seconds, so.
Uh-huh.
And a drink. They're very salty fries.
I can imagine. What are you drinking tonight?
Cherry Coca-Cola.
Ah. After we're done here, I'm going to alternate between milk and eggnog.
I've never had eggnog.
Really?
No. You forget, eggnog has alcohol in it, right?
Not usually. Most eggnog you get at the store, you have to add the alcohol yourself by adding like rum or whiskey to it.
Oh.
But like the base is basically, think of like a cross between milk and a milkshake, because it's like eggs and nutmeg and milk and butter and cinnamon.
Yeah, I've just never had it.
One of the many things that I will have to resolve as your friend for you when we meet up.
No.
We're gonna have to meet up at some point around the holidays now, just so I can kill you with the kindness of Yuletide bullshit.
I'm good. Honestly, it's been something that's never really interested me.
I think you'd like it, given how much you like chocolate milk.
Which apparently I don't get that.
I always think it's a waste of perfectly good milk. I don't feel that way with eggnog though. Eggnog does enough to be its own thing that I don't hate it for corrupting perfectly good milk.
Go fuck yourself. Anyway, the new Disney Plus series, The Santa Clauses, which is a reprisal of the Santa Claus movies, stars conservative actor Tim Allen. If I can't say that. Who has been criticized over a line in the show where Santa says saying Merry Christmas to all has suddenly become problematic. A line from Allen's character prompted a Twitter firestorm after filmmaker Scott Weinberg called it a truly weird thing to put in a kid's series. I mean, the guy's not wrong on that account. That it feels like that, depending on the context, it could feel very out of place.
It feels a little bit forced, but it's not. It's one of those things of like, it's as much making fun of the people who would agree with it as making fun of the people who disagree with it. So I don't hate it. It's kind of like how the magicians mouth off in millennial speak because they're fucking college students, but it never, like, as much as, Margot will occasionally mention like the patriarchy or oppression or whatever, it doesn't bother me because I think it's more in character for the characters, and also making partial fun of the vapidness of college students. So it's kind of similar to that of like, would I have been fine if they had gotten rid of the line? Sure. But it doesn't make me actively groan when he says it. Because it's not like a driving force of the fucking ethos of the thing.
I haven't seen the Santa Clauses. Didn't really want to because I saw the trailer and it didn't really grab me. Not like it wasn't. I didn't think like a front or anything. I'm gonna be honest. Santa Claus movies never really grabbed me per se. Like they're fine. I enjoy them, but you know,
And again, I wonder how much of this is a generation thing because
I grew up like I grew up watching them, but like again, I don't know.
what one thing I will say is the sequels kept getting progressively worse.
I think
And
that I think that was it. Like it was more the sequels that kind of bothered. Well, no, I actually like the second one pretty good because I think that's
yeah, the romantic angle between him and Carol, I believe is her name,
yeah.
is Mrs. Claus.
hmm
Yeah,
Also,
I like that too. But honestly, it's a weird thing with Santa Claus too because I like whenever it's him romancing um when it's him romancing Carol and using Santa magic to do it. Like the whole using Santa magic to win at Secret Santa-ing.
I also like the actually was no, they were in the third movie, or was it? Were they introduced in the second movie? The other holiday people and stuff.
Oh, the Council of Legendary Figures.
Yeah.
They showed up in both.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen them, so my mind's a little fuzzy.
Yeah, Jack Frost didn't show up until the third one because he was apparently late for the meeting. But Mother Nature, Father Time, Cupid, Easter Bunny, Sandman, and I can't remember if any of the other ones were in Santa Claus 2. But
Tooth.
yeah, I'll give you that to some degree because I do feel like the sequels were nowhere near as good as the first one. The first one, and maybe this is because I'm roughly the same age as Charlie is supposed to be, um, the main kid in the Santa Claus franchise.
Uh-huh.
But that first movie was like perfectly encapsulated Christmas as a whole to me. Also, I really liked the like quasi technological but quasi magical thing of like the fact that there's a set of special forces elves that use like laser tinsel and shit, and the idea of the CD-ROM and Santa's sleigh being upgraded and shooting out cookies is just good.
Mm.
Um,
Anyway,
but yeah, I do feel like the sequels failed to capture the same magic, and the second one probably would have been better off if it had just focused um on Carol and Scott getting together rather than introducing um plastic toy Santa as the villain.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, sometimes like you don't need like an antagonist.
Yeah, like the antagonist in the case of the Santa Claus 2 was the clock and his Santa Clausness, running out slowly.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. So anyway,
One thing I will also say, where the fuck was Bernard in Santa Claus 2 and 3? Because like he was the head elf for apparently thousands of years, and then all of a sudden Curtis was doing it. And I like Curtis, don't get me wrong, but he works better as like a second fiddle to Bernard because I really Bernard was actually my favorite character
right.
in the Santa Claus franchise.
Anyway, shall we continue or
Yes.
okay? It's not some random campaign. It's a low-key effort to vilify anyone who doesn't celebrate this holiday. Weinberg tweeted in a grown-up movie. I just groan and ignore it.
It's a movie about Santa Claus in a franchise explicitly focused on Santa Claus. I'm sorry, but if you're that kind of moralistic hard ass that you have a problem with that, there's the door. I don't want to use the famous and annoying, it's not for you, but if you're the kind of person who takes explicit umbrage with it, it is a bit annoying. Like, and again, it's not like they don't give deference to other holidays or other holiday icons. Because I mean, you've got Cupid, you've got Easter Bunny, Mother Nature and Father Time kind of are symbolic of New Year's, etc. Like
Tooth Fairy, aka the Toothinator, aka Roy.
Merv.
No, it's Roy.
Yeah, his name is Merv, and I love the idea of the Tooth Fairy being named Merv. I do wonder if the mantles of the other holiday icons pass like they do with Santa or not, though.
Hey, Dragon Turtle, how you doing? We're doing fine. We're trying to cover this article from Fox News.
Yep. We're doing one article where it's the right complaining about the left war on Christmas, and then we're going to do one article where the TradCon shoot themselves in the foot again because balance. And then Brainstormer has a thing to end things off on
High note.
On a good note because of course he does.
I want to keep it a surprise. You know. So,
yeah. Moving forward.
Twitter users were also quick to call out Democrat Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers for referring to the state's Christmas tree as the 2022 Capitol holiday tree. It's a big fucking tree in the Capitol. I believe.
And I mean, not to side with the SJWs a little bit here, but the concept of the Christmas tree comes from Yule, and there's nothing within the Christian mythos that like venerates trees. So, as annoying as I find it that they would need to rename it a holiday tree, it isn't particularly Christian either. So, it's essentially you guys playing victim over who gets to politicize. That's my problem with both sides on this, because it's not a case of one side advocating to stop politicizing something or another side advocating to politicize something. It's a case of two flavors of moralistic fucktard deciding who gets to play victim over the holiday, who gets to politicize the holiday.
Sorry, I did also want to distract you. You also did miss. You also did miss the opening song that we played, which was a heavy metal Santa jingle.
Yeah, it was
stuff, obviously, but you know,
it was actually fairly badass. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed it.
You should see the animated music video for it. Actually, it's pretty cool, mainly because like the image you see on my icon right now, you'll see a bigger version when I turn this off. We actually got not too much longer, but it's actually the Santa of that music video. I found an image of him, so yeah, you'll see it. You'll see it.
But yeah, in any case, I didn't mind that because it didn't. There are metal versions that just lay on the metal far too thick and almost make it like scream metal.
Yeah, that's fair. I could to be fair, my favorite type of like metal music is like very classic, you know, Metallica, who are the guys who did God Was Never On Your Motorhead.
I love Motorhead.
Yeah.
God Was Never On Your Side is one of my favorite songs.
That's actually the first song I ever heard of them.
I didn't. To be fair, I think I had heard it before Supernatural used it, but when Supernatural used it was when it finally stuck in my head, and I had to go and look it up later.
But yeah, like I agree. Like screamo metal, like there are certain types of metal that aren't really my thing. Really, it depends, because I'll be honest, my taste in music is very like diverse. Just because like I mostly just listen to something that sounds good.
One thing I do like is metal covers of other genres of music. Like I really love metal covers of classical music because they take it up and make it like extra epic.
I think I heard one that did like a Beethoven cover.
And I know you've heard the Devil's Troll Sonata in metal form because I remember sending that to you for when you're writing the Jersey Devil there for Lionhearted. Anyway, moving forward.
Yeah. Governor Kathy Hochul received similar backlash last year when she referred to the state's capital Christmas tree as a holiday tree. Oh, there's no winning with any of these people.
And notice that while I think the right has more complaints or has more valid complaints about the war on Christmas now than they ever have before, notice that they're kind of gloating about how she received backlash, I'm gonna say the same thing to you as I say to the SJWs when they like simultaneously gloat and also act like they're the rebels. If there's enough people to stoke a backlash, you're probably not as minority as you think you are. I.e., by the same token of the SJWs having the power to cancel things probably means they're not in the minority. Um, you guys in your ilk being able to stoke up a backlash over someone simply using the phrase holiday tree rather than Christmas tree probably means you're not in the minority either. So neither, again, it's a case of neither of you get victim points. Please shut up and let the rest of us enjoy the holiday for what it is rather than the moralistic stroke religious bullshit you want to make it into. Moving on.
Right. This is the first year Christmas shows and traditions have come under fire. A long-running debate about the classic Christmas song "Baby It's Cold Outside" has garnered more attention in recent years amid the #MeToo movement, and we've covered that ad nauseum.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's kind of like how every Halloween there's always going to be an SJW article about how um certain costumes are overly sexy or overly problematic or cultural appropriation or whatever. Just like that, every Christmas, someone somewhere is going to complain about maybe it's cold outside. And to be fair, the right wing has their equivalent of this because every year there's a there's a constant debate over whether true Christians shouldn't celebrate the holidays because they're not Christian enough. So like both of y'all play moral victim over holidays in the same goddamn way like fucking clockwork every year. But in some ways that kind of makes it a Christmas tradition to sit here and rebut the same old arguments. But just because, you know, we're here anyway, the challenge I always give to the people who want to play victim over Baby It's Cold Outside or want to play, you know, Baby It's Cold Outside is problematic. One of my favorite versions of Baby It's Cold Outside is the gay version from Glee that is done between Kurt and Blaine, who would later become a gay couple in the show. And I hazard a guess that the SJW types who constantly play victim over Baby It's Cold Outside suddenly understand what makes Baby It's Cold Outside romantic when it's two gay guys singing it to each other or two girls singing it to each other. It only appears to be problematic because the idea that a man would ever be forward in their pursuit of a partner and a woman would ever be coy or coquettish or flirtatious about her like avoidance of that romance seems to be what triggers people. So here's a challenge for all the SJWs out there. If you can change the gender of one of the singers of Baby It's Cold Outside, and all of a sudden it doesn't become problematic anymore, then perhaps it's not problematic at all. And especially if if you're the kind of people who can look at the gay version from Glee and go, "Aw," when they're singing it, but you get uncomfortable whenever it's a guy and a girl singing it, I would hazard a guess that your issues have more to do with misandry than they do with morality.
Oh, that actually reminds me about that song because the running joke with me is originally I thought it was about a man and a woman cheating on their significant others with each other.
Yeah, no, I don't know where you pulled that out of, but to be fair, I have my unusual takes on Christmas songs and their meanings too. Like,
I'm like I was listening to the lyrics one day when I was in high school, and I was reading them on my phone, and I don't know, it came across that to me. Maybe I'm weird for that. I understand that, and I have
yeah,
that context of the actual song. So
and out of solidarity with you, I will now share my awkward Christmas song theory. You know, my head canon with regards to a Christmas song or two, out of solidarity with you. When I heard the song "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus" as a child, a lot of people seem to think that was a song about um, the father of the kid, doing the duty of Santa Claus, and he caught mommy and daddy both kissing. I always interpreted that, even as a child, as the mom is cheating on her husband with Santa Claus, and the child caught them without, and was too innocent to realize what was going on. That was my rendition. And
Yeah.
I also my my unusual taste on or my unusual takes on Christmas song does go one step further, because not only did I think that I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus was a song about a woman cheating on her husband with Santa Claus, I also kind of thought that the song Santa Baby and I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus referred to the same woman, i.e., a woman who is basically seducing Santa Claus to get better presents.
To be fair, I've never really listened to those two songs. Well, no, okay. Let me rephrase that or revise that. I have listened to them. Been a while. Not gonna lie. So the Santa Baby one, I'm more familiar with. I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Obviously, that comes on the radio a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But Santa Baby, I am familiar with it, but it has been a while since I've heard it. So
It's basically a woman being a Christmas gold digger and seducing Santa to get herself better presents.
that actually sounds. That I'm not gonna lie. That would sound like a really interesting movie at the very least.
Yeah, and again, especially if in my harebrained version, instead of the kid seeing his parents kissing and not realizing they were his parents because he was too young to not know the difference. I still like my headcanon of the mother is cheating on her husband with Santa, probably at least partially to get in good with someone with all the resources of Santa Claus, because
Dragon,
hypergamy bitches.
Dragon Turtle, seducing Santa to get better presents. How is that so innocent, but also so not innocent?
Because if we actually lived in a world where Santa was a concrete being who concretely did the yearly gift routine, there would be the equivalent of thoughts who would literally look at Santa and go, that guy has the resources to do all of this for people all over the world. I got to get me some of that.
Right. So, okay, there's like I don't know, paragraph left. So, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Many critics believe the song implies date rape, citing lyrics saying "What's in this drink? Do you mind if I move in closer?" and "Gosh, your lips look delicious."
Because whoever heard of playing hard to get or plausible deniability in the 1950s when
Or
the song was fucking written?
or flirting, you know.
Yeah, again, and I know I've said this many, many times because we've covered this many, many times, but it's the woman wanting to see how far this guy is willing to go and also give herself plausible deniability in the case of things going south.
Right.
And also the fact that because the song was written, I believe, in the 1950s, but it might have been even earlier, it might have been in the 30s, it's the idea that during that time, especially when tradcon values were far more pervasive, you were supposed to court each other in a very formal structure, and you weren't supposed to get romantic outside of that very formal courting structure,
Right.
especially if your family wouldn't approve.
Mrs. Mrs. Claus. Well, you misspelled Mrs. So Mrs. Claus just has a spy network to stop that.
I know it's like can you imagine the like like I'm gonna coin a term. I'm calling it a Hera complex. Can you imagine the Hera complex that Mrs. Claus would have in that hypothetical universe?
Although I will be honest, I think out of all mythical beings, Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus probably have the best relationship out there.
I mean, yeah, and if we go back to like the mythological roots of Santa, it being Odin and Freya means they've been together for thousands upon thousands of years. I think they're both secure enough that they would imagine a world where Santa was another guise for Odin, and then Freya found out that someone was trying to seduce him. Like, oh dear goddess, that the ton of bricks that would hit that bitch.
Anyway, in 2019, John Legend and Kelly Clarkson collaborated on an updated PC rewrite of the song for, Baby It's Cold Outside, swapping the original lyrics for lines like "It's your body and your choice, and I want you to stay. It's not up to me." Yeah, to be fair,
That
we listened to that, right? We listened to
Yeah, we did, and it literally removed all of the like the flirtation or the romancing going on because here's the thing. This doesn't just apply to men and women. It applies to anyone who is more submissive and anyone who is more dominant. Many people outside of the gay community don't understand this, but um for as one-dimensional as the dynamics between tops and bottoms can be, there is something that tops and bottoms in gay communities have in common with the standard relationship between a husband and a wife, which is yes, the top is more dominant. Yes, the top nominally has more control over the bottom. But just like with women, that means the bottom is a beneficiary of the top's protection, provision, and the top is expected to go out of their way to make the bottom happy, whether it be sexually or just, romantically, like a husband and wife would. Because those with overt power are more held to the standard of what they use that power for, and usually that involves making those who are under your authority, under your aegis, happy, and those with nominal submission often have a kind of overt power, or rather, covert power, excuse me, where they get to, in some sense, control what the dominant partner does with that strength they have or that power they have. I.e., just like a wife can use her husband as an enforcer, a a more feminine gay man can use his opposite number as an enforcer. And yes, I am hoping to find a day that I can find one of those to call my own, but that's neither here nor there. But my point being is it doesn't matter if it's men or women. This is just a relationship dynamic that exists. Those with more overt power are expected to use that overt power on the behalf of their significant other. And those with a less overt form of power in the relationship often are the beneficiaries of the powers of suggestion and manipulation, i.e., it's the dominant partner's job to please, and it's the submissive partner's um, perk that they get to use the dominant partner to get shit done for them on their behalf. Moving on.
right. Uh, Again, this one Dalton sent me the 4 reasons Christmas is not a Christian holiday. It never was, really.
Yeah, no. The one period of time where it might have reasonably been referred to as that was the very same time where the Protestant Reformation went, there's too much pre-Christianity in my Christmas and my Halloween, therefore we have to ban them, derp.
You can make the decisions, but in turn, hold on. It's the freedom versus responsibility. You can make the decisions, but in turn, you need to provide, or you can be provided for, but you lose your say.
Well, it's also, well, no, it's also the to use a phrase that I think everyone is familiar with, the yes dear syndrome. as we know throughout history, many a powerful man has had a powerful woman pulling the strings of him because of yes dear syndrome. Um, because just because the just because the more masculine partner has overt power doesn't mean the submissive partner has no power. And in fact, in many ways, the only difference between the dominant and the submissive partners is one partner's power is very literal, is very actionable, very overt, and one partner's power is the power of manipulation. I.e., would you rather be the person inflicting the violence upon someone on someone else's behalf, or would you rather be the person who can snap your fingers and have your own personal thug do your will for you in the name of protecting and providing for you?
Uh, okay, I'll answer. I'll read this, and then we have to get to the article itself. Good retro. Uh, that is true with the direct versus self-power. Okay, so you guys, have you guys seen the Tradcons yet? Who look at Christianity as a Middle Eastern slash Jewish thing and want to go back to their reinvention of pagan myths or start from scratch with artificial myths?
Oh yeah, that's been a thing for at least a century or so. Hitler and his cronies were very big into Norse pagan bastardization.
Right. Anyway,
There's an entire movement of pagans called folkists who basically view um gods as not literal beings but as archetypes, and essentially um review view different pantheons of gods as like some kind of racial unifying oversoul, i.e., there are people who think that only white people can engage with the Norse gods, and only Mediterranean people can engage with Greek gods, and so on.
that's dumbass as fuck, and also,
I know it's the single stupidest thing I've ever heard, but yes, folkism is what you're referring to there, and it's definitely a thing.
right. Anyway,
Granted, it makes slightly more sense than the fact that most people
Dalton.
who are Makotoral Christians don't realize that their religion comes from the Middle East, but it's still stupid.
Yeah, I recently watched some clips from Kingdom of Heaven. Good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, like I said, I want to get I do want to get through this so we can have
Get
something.
into the good thing. So yeah.
So 4 reasons Christmas is not a Christian holiday. It's by Eddie Foster, published December 9th, 2022. Should Christians celebrate Christmas? Is Christmas Christian? Is Christmas biblical? Read on to learn why Christmas is not a Christian holiday. Kind of never was.
Yeah, no, it's not. And as much as I hate making myself a meme and inadvertently lying myself a little bit with the SJWs here, I'm gonna borrow a phrase from Mr. Bernie Sanders, or a meme from Mr. Bernie Sanders, and go, and that's a good thing. Like, no, Christmas isn't Christian, and for the most part, that's a good thing. And again, I don't mean to be offensive to Christians, especially because I know Dragon Turtle is very Christian, but I think the reason why it's a good thing that Christianity and other Abrahamic religions did steal a lot from polytheistic traditions is so much of Christianity in its purest form is about asceticism. Like, if you go back to Jesus specifically, his whole life philosophy was basically very similar to Buddhism in a sense, because he essentially was like, give away all your material possessions, give away all your like material attachments. The material world is a prison that you need to escape from, and so on. Because so much of Christianity in its purest form is that kind of asceticism, I think it's a good thing that Christianity ended up borrowing from polytheistic celebrations, because in many ways the kind of asceticism that Jesus and Buddha and other religious figures of the type were advocating for is anathema to celebration, because celebration is all about excess and embracing the plenty that the world has to offer you, and being grateful for essentially being able to indulge in hedonism. at the appropriate times. So yeah, most of what makes holidays good and fun and worth celebrating comes from a philosophy that is more hedonistic and less ascetic, i.e., a polytheistic framework rather than a monotheistic one, for the most part. Moving on. Brainstorm? I'm guessing this time he actually did go to put his plate away. I mean in the philosophical stroke, like in the sense of what actually gets practiced, Dragon Turtle, like the philosophical sense and the practical sense. It's not like it's not rooted in Christianity, is what I'm saying. It and I'm not even willing to call it pagan either, because pagan has far too many like European specific connotations there. I that's why I more often refer to it as polytheistic or pre-Christian when I refer to it, or even sometimes pre-Abrahamic, because that I think that's the important part.
I'm back.
The parts of Christmas that we actually engage with and that make Christmas a worthwhile thing to celebrate come from a time before, or a paradigm before, the Abrahamic religions existed. And like I say, it's mostly a good thing, because Christianity, much like Buddhism, prizes unattachment, unmaterialism, unhedonism, etc., whereas polytheistic frameworks meet in the middle and say hedonism is good to a degree. Just make sure you're grateful for the things you indulge in, and also make sure that you do so in a particular like framework.
Okay, so I'm back. Sorry, I was helping my family or something.
No problem.
Yeah, all right, moving on. Because to be fair, we haven't actually gotten into the actual article.
Yeah, yeah. We should move on.
Yeah. As millions of people around the world decorate trees, wrap and give gifts, and tell their children the story of Santa Claus, a fundamental question must be answered. Is Christmas really Christian?
No, and that's a good thing.
Well, because of the attention paid to the story of Christ's birth and the carols celebrating the baby Jesus. I'm sorry,
Like,
that's written in a way that I almost sounded like speaking in a southern drawl.
yeah, yeah. It does make you want to go full like Ned Flanders, doesn't it?
Okay, I want to try this. Just give me a second. uh, because of the now it's only certain words I guess I can enunciate in Southern.
And I don't want to try it because I don't think I could do it with a straight face. Plus, it would remind me too much of the fucking pastor who basically gave me an ultimatum to repent and rejoin the church or pursue my own interests.
Right.
And no thanks. I don't hold as much of a grudge on him as I once did, but it still hurts to think about sometimes,
Right.
especially on Christmas fucking Eve.
All right. So yeah, because of the attention paid to the story of Christ's birth and the carol celebrating the baby Jesus. I'm sorry, I had to.
Well done, sir.
Many may
I would give you a cookie, but we haven't worked out teleportation yet.
many may be shocked to hear a Christian say, "I don't celebrate Christmas because it is not Christian to do so." I've never met anyone who says that.
I mean, I'm split on this because on the one hand, good for you for taking responsibility for your own spiritual tradition. On the other hand, I'm of the opinion that religion doesn't need to dominate literally everything we do. And again, maybe this is because I'm an outsider of all religions, because I don't even consider myself pagan. I consider myself an occultist because I don't engage with the gods in a way that denotes worship and like irrational reverence. I work with spirits and gods like they're incredibly important political figures, or like they are um, aristocrats, or like they are business partners. I respect spirits and gods in the same way I would respect someone who is like the CEO of a company, or the sovereign of a country or something. But I don't worship any beings, and I don't engage in rituals that have no purpose other than to basically act as symbolic interpretive dance to win favor from a deity. When I engage with a ritual, I do so in a very deliberate, very conscious, very mechanical way, which is magical rather than religious. I.e., I don't pray, I summon, basically. Um, is the long and the short of it. Why pray to a deity when you can just call them up and actually get their attention? Is my way of going about it.
Hey,
And no, I don't think that anyone who engages with spirits in a religious way is therefore inferior or some shit before anyone goes there. I'm just saying religion as a whole doesn't make sense to me because I found a way to engage with metaphysics in a much more literal, linear, practical way, and that seems to suit my tendencies better and makes more sense to me. And people are free to operate differently. I'm just saying that's part of the reason why I don't even,
Don,
as much as I enjoy pointing out the pagan roots of Christianity, I don't even like giving paganism particular credit for that because I think it's more of a human universal. In the same way as I regard magic more as a technology or a intellectual pursuit than I do a religious one.
okay, so all right, so I'm gonna read what Dragon wrote here. Don saying no, and that's a good thing, makes you sound like you're either trying to undermine Christianity or that you are a social constructivist and think it's all relative and arbitrary.
As I just went over, there's nothing about these traditions that I think is socially constructed or arbitrary. I think they're human universals and aspects of nature. But in that same way, I don't like giving any one religion or one religious narrative around these holidays um particular credit. But that being said, I'm unwilling to be a quote unquote enlightened centrist in this regard and refuse to acknowledge the distinction between someone or a particular perspective that has more legitimacy than others. And unfortunately, or in my opinion, somewhat fortunately, most of the Christian trappings of Christmas are late additions and mostly incidental.
Okay,
But I don't say that to belittle anyone
Don,
or to be mean about it. I'm saying that because I think that it genuinely improves the holiday, that it is a human universal rather than being tied to any one religion.
okay, so what he had said while you were going on like that. P.S. Not saying you are, just sounds like it. It's more the phrasing. So that might just be from the left going, and that's a good thing for dystopia.
And this is why I'm in a very rock and hard place with this, because the problem is, as annoying as the interpretation that the quote unquote left draws about this might be, their perspective is at least rooted in some level of factual accuracy. Um, which as we covered a couple weeks ago, me and Corrupt spent like 20 minutes pointing out the fact that they literally gave up on their one inarguably true supposition because it wasn't convenient for their moralistic argument. And that's the difference between social justice types and me. I think that Christmas not being particularly Christian is a good thing for meritocratic reasons. I don't give a fuck about morality and politics here. I think the holiday itself is functionally better because of its universal or polytheistic or air quotes pagan aspects. And I find that the need to cram any particular religion in there kind of diminishes it. I I I think in some ways one of the benefits of Christmas being partially polytheistic, partially adapted into monotheism, and partially secular is that it can belong to everyone. Everyone can engage with it, and as such, I find Christmas to be kind of a stand-in for the various universal practices that every culture comes up with to some degree, whether it's Hindu Diwali, whether it's winter solstice, whether it's Yule, whether it's Mithra Festival, whether it's Saturnalia, whatever. The best part about Christmas is that it has bits and pieces of everything, so everyone can engage with it, and there's no harm in engaging with it in a non-religious way. And I think in a lot of ways trying to tether it to one religion or the other, and that goes equally for the people who go, you should get rid of any reference to anything that isn't particularly about Yule or particularly about winter solstice. I find those people to be just as hilarious, because like, you don't need to separate out Yule and Christmas because they're the same thing. And same thing goes when the trad cons go all Bible thumpy with it. It's like, you do know that good things can come from things other than your religion, right? Like, you can have fun and be happy in the context of things that aren't my God and my Jesus. Moving on.
Right. Okay. Why would a Christian, someone who strongly believes that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior, make a conscious decision to reject Christmas? Isn't Christmas biblical? Why would Christmas not? Why would Christians not celebrate Christmas? Is Christmas an evil holiday? 4 reasons is not Christmas is not a Christian holiday. Let's consider 4 reasons why Christmas doesn't meet the criteria of being Christian. To be fair, that all depends on the individual.
I mean, yes, but my only issue with what he's saying here is that he wants to turn that into, and therefore we shouldn't celebrate it, rather than, oh, I guess other traditions or other religions or other cultures had good things. And one of the issues I have with these kind of Bible thumpers is they can't ever distinguish between something that isn't Christian and also good. Like, they need to either pretzelize their brain into thinking something is Christian, or pretzelize their brain into thinking it's evil. And neither of those things follow. Like, just because there's good, even if I were a Christian, I would be sitting here saying, just because there might be good things in Christianity doesn't mean that Christianity has some kind of monopoly on good things. And there are things that are outside of the purview of Christianity that are inarguably good things. The stuff that leads to things like Halloween and Christmas being the foremost among them, if I had to guess, but whatever.
Okay,
moving forward.
number one, Christmas is not Christian because it is associated with many pagan birth myths, and December 25th was not the date of Christ's birth. You know, my history teacher mentioned that offhandedly when I was in sophomore year, I think.
Yeah, you can tell by certain astronomical or astrological things mentioned in the Bible, and also the general birthing practices and courtship practices of the Jewish communities that Jesus or Mary and Joseph would have been part of, that Jesus was almost certainly born in the summer months. But again, I don't particular like it doesn't particularly bother me. And I don't think it would bother me even if I were a Christian, because again, even in the brief period of time when I was a Christian, I didn't need Christianity to be the source of all good things or everything that wasn't Christian to be bad. Like, I can acknowledge that my way of thinking is good without giving it like exclusive rights to all good things ever.
You know, well, okay. So Giant also have a few things. Yeah, I was noticing that too. He isn't upfront with it, but he's advocating a totalitarian view of Christianity. It's either 109% Christian or evil and should be abolished. I think that is a term we should popularize more, totalitarian religion slash ideology. But I think everything in the universe must revolve around their worldview, nothing neutral or even moderate.
Yeah, that's often what I mean when I specified the difference between morality and moralism, or ethics and morality, is that is the fundamental difference. The fundamental difference between morality and moralism is morality can be a personal position or a choice or a personal framework. Moralism requires it to literally apply to every aspect of reality, or the world is fallen and sinful and evil and we should shun everything about the world. And you can see that same mentality with the social justice warriors of either it fits with social justice or it's an affectation of a fallen world, i.e., the patriarchy, and we need to destroy every aspect of it. It's why I'm so anal retentive about the notion that the world is not fallen, and why I don't believe in things like original sin, period. Because that's the ultimate, that's the ultimate gotcha of all moralistic authoritarians, is
I,
they're all to some degree nihilistic, because they all believe that apart from my chosen sacred thing, the world is bad and needs to be purified by my sacred thing.
so, um, for the record, that was just the title of that point.
Yeah, anyway, moving forward.
Yeah, though December 21st is the birthday of Jesus by a large segment of Christendom, uh, there is no evidence that this was actually the date he was born. The Bible does not give us Christ's date of birth, but it gives some clues that it was at a warmer time of the year. December 25th wasn't assigned to be the date of Christ's birth until about 300 years after he was born. Why, you may ask, would this date have been chosen so long after the fact? The basic answer is December 21st was chosen to encourage followers of a variety of pagan religions that celebrated that day to convert to Christianity. Those pagan celebrations include the Roman Saturnalia and the birthday of the Persian god Mithra. To take a deeper dive into what we know about Jesus' birth, read the birth of Jesus and the birth of Jesus myths and misperceptions.
I mean, he's not wrong, other than in the way he's choosing to interpret that information. Like, I don't. And again, maybe this is because I have the outsider perspective looking in, but that doesn't that doesn't mean it's evil or bad or should be shunned or shamed. In my head, that means, hey, those cultures knew something I didn't know. Neat, etc. That's the difference. Is people with authoritarian moralism will always interpret anything they get their hands on in a way that is nihilistic or in a way that belittles and vilifies and dehumanizes people, whereas people who aren't moralistic tend to interpret things as either neutral or a way that allows for some kind of universal human compassion. And while compassion definitely isn't my thing, I do think a lot of the worst aspects of humanity come from our nihilistic catastrophizing paranoia about what if every other person in the world isn't a good person like I am, derp. Moving forward.
Okay. Number two, Christmas is not Christian because most Christian Christmas traditions come from paganism, not the Bible. The time of year chosen, starting a week before Christmas, correlates with the pagan festival of Saturnalia. This was celebrated in honor of Saturn, the Roman god of agriculture. Two other traditions of Saturnalia that live on today is Christmas include gift giving and fabulous light displays.
Also correct, although you left out Yule and the winter solstice.
However, God instructs us to never worship him with pagan practices. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such practices. Deuteronomy 12, verse 4. No, verse 12, chapter.
Far be it from me to disagree with the Bible here, but right up until the New Testament, you literally did worship the Abrahamic God in the same way that the Sumerians, Canaanites, Assyrians, and Babylonians worshipped theirs. And there's some etymology and religious anthropology to suggest that the being now known as Jehovah, Yahweh, or Elohim was actually a member of a pre-existing polytheistic pantheon held by the Canaanites and the Assyrians, specifically the epithet El, which in Hebrew translates as generic God, i.e., not referring to a specific deity, but referring to God in general. And why most of the angels have El as their suffix, because it's a translation of the blank of God, usually. The insert MacGuffin of God for angel names is because the Canaanite creator deity slash lead deity of their pantheon was named El or Baal Adad. And you can do with that information what you wish, but it sort of does poo-poo that verse in Deuteronomy there.
Anyway. Okay, Giant Turtle, what about the in between? They don't take it to that totalitarian extreme, but they still seek to impose their morals on others beyond the harm principle. Is there a term for that more specific than hubris, where you think you are the only slash one of the few smart slash loyal slash talented slash etc. ones? Is that a IRL main character syndrome?
I mean, yes, there's that, and I know of one person. I know of one person who coined this term in the context of men's issues, the one good man syndrome. And she specifically noticed it in the phenomena of how male feminists view all other varieties of men usually, and or the concept of toxic masculinity, the idea of my ideology or my position or my religion makes me better than you, and therefore it is the only way to be a good man, and therefore all other men are bad by default. One good man syndrome. Um, I would argue that it's still within the still within the purview of the notion of moralism. It's just a less severe version of moralism ultimately.
Anyway, no.
Yeah. Moving on.
Historians also connect December 25th with the Roman festival of De- Deus Natas Solis Evicti,
Yeah.
the birthday of
Or
the unconquered,
otherwise sometimes referred to as Sol Invictus for short.
birthday of the unconquered sun.
Yeah.
According to the Academic Education, the date of December 25th specifically likely comes from the Roman festival of day of the birth of the unconquered sun, a festival specifically celebrating the birth of the sun. This festival was more specifically religious than the general merriment of Saturnalia, and it is noted that Constantine, the first Christian emperor, was brought up in the cult of the sun, so it is possible that the date of Christmas was designed to replace this festival specifically rather than more ambiguous dates of Saturnalia.
I mean, to be fair, this idea of the sun being made new, or the rebirth of light, or the notion of darkness slowly being pushed away is a very common motif in a lot of different religious practices in that helped inspire Christmas. Um, you can see it in the idea of um, the Celtic notion of one half of the year being light or summer, and the other half of the year being dark or winter, and Yule being celebrated as both the peak of the dark half and also the beginning of light being made anew. In fact, there's several myths in various different cultures about the idea of um, dawn on the day after Yule, refreshing or making the world new. So yeah, it's another one of those things of it's hard to differentiate what was borrowed from each other and what everyone just kind of universally um came to their own independent conclusions on. I'm I tend to lean towards a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, because we see that a lot, particularly in Roman writings, when they stumbled on a new religious thing or a new god, they would just go, "Oh, that's very similar to our god X." Like when they came on Odin in the Norse countries, they were like, "Oh, he sounds a lot like our Mercury," and the same thing happened with Thoth. He sounds a lot like Mercury. They might either they're the same deity or they're different deities serving the same function. Isn't that interesting? And kudos to the pre-Christian Romans for being that enlightened at that particular time in history, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. So I do wonder how many of these traditions were borrowed from each other and how many of them were just, oh, you guys have a festival of the unconquered sun too? Neat, so do we.
Since the term pagan is not used as much today, it is important we understand its meaning. Paganism refers to religious worship of gods other than the true God of the Bible. Pagan worship often involves polytheism, worship of multiple gods, and often centers on worshiping elements of nature.
Even your definition of paganism couldn't go without being biased, could it? By the way, just because I feel like etymologically speaking for a second here, the term pagan actually comes from the Latin paganos, which means country folk or country practice, because paganism was specifically thought to be the practices of village shamanesses or wise women. Hence, they were literally the folklore or the folk wisdom of the countryside. paganos means country folk or country practice. Moving on.
To learn more about the pagan origins of Christmas, read Is Christmas a Pagan Holiday? And to learn why it should matter to you, read Doesn't Matter That Christmas is Pagan. Okay. Number 3, Christmas is not Christian because lying is not Christian. There is no Santa Claus. Parents shouldn't lie to their children.
I do want to, like, my first impulse is to spark about Odin, the Holly King, etc., but that wouldn't help. I don't think that would help my case in this particular context because you just go, all other gods are demons, and then we'd be right back to square one. But even outside of the various other influences on the idea of Santa Claus, he's colloquially referred to as Saint Nick because he does borrow at least somewhat, although probably least among all the other inspirations, in my opinion, from Nicholas of Myra. And we've gone into further detail about why I think there's more influence from figures like Odin and the Holly King than there is from Nicholas of Myra. But as a Christian, now granted, I imagine this person is probably a very devout, very Bible thumpy version of Protestantism rather than Catholic, so he might think saints in general are a no-go in general. But at the very least, there is at least a pretense of Christianization here that there's even less of in other traditions around this holiday. So you might want to argue among yourselves on that one, my Christian friend. Moving on.
Right. One of the most popular Christmas customs involves telling children that there is a jolly, pot-bellied man named Santa Claus who delivers Christmas gifts to all good children around the world. This custom practically makes Santa Claus into a godlike being with the ability to hear children's wishes, prayers, and visits all the good children of the world in one night. Supernatural powers, and he's portrayed as always staying the same age, immortal. Of course, this myth is found nowhere in the Bible. Okay?
Okay, but again, even outside of the various pre-Christian influences here, the Odins, the Holly Kings, etc., and I realize there's quite a bit of a gulf between the Catholic veneration of saints and the Protestant hatred of saints on the grounds that they're too pagan. But at the very least, in a very classically Christian mythos, Santa allegedly gets the majority of his powers from his status as a saint. I mean, hell, the name Santa Claus comes from the Dutch Sinterklaas, which literally is their Dutchization of the name Saint Nicholas. So you don't have to focus on that because, again, like I said, the relationship between Santa Claus and Saint Nicholas is a bit tenuous, and on that point I would agree with you, but at the very least there is a Christian connection here that you're overlooking that would probably make a lot of your own people rather pissed off at you. Now, granted, the gulf between Catholics and Protestants has never been understated, but or never been overstated, but who boy, that's more of a clean up your own house before you go lecturing everyone else things. Merry Christmas to you too, Ahsoka.
Oh, hey, Ahsoka. Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas Eve at least. If we are able to be on here for until 12, then we'll say Merry. Then we'll
yeah. But to be fair, Christmas week started on Yule proper, so if you go, it's funny because there's some disagreement as to whether the 12 days of Christmas refer to the 12 days preceding Christmas and therefore are capped off by Christmas, or if Christmas starts on December 25th and doesn't end until January the 11th, or January 10th, rather. Honestly, I usually split the difference and say that there are 12 days on either side of December the 25th that count as part of Christmas, which, given the polytheistic and pre-Christian roots of Christmas, kind of makes sense because usually festivals like Yule, winter solstice, Saturnalia, etc., don't last a single day. A single day is sort of the centerpiece of the festival, and a month around that time is said to be earmarked for it. And the same is true of Halloween. Like October 31st is the peak of Halloween, but the days surrounding it are also technically part of Samhain, etc. Moving on.
Is it Christian for parents to teach this myth to their children? The Bible is very clear that lying is a sin. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Exodus chapter chapter 20, verse 16.
I mean, false witness specifically refers to, like, in a legal context, i.e., basically it's an admonition against perjury, specifically. And by the way, it's also present in things like the Code of Hammurabi, which predates the written parts of the Old Testament, at least. But that's neither here nor there. My point is that just like the Bible also says, I believe it's Matthew. Is it Matthew 6, verse 5 and 6? Or I think it might be Matthew 6, verse 5 and 6. It says to essentially keep your religion to yourself. Something akin to, clearly I say unto you, look with scorn upon your neighbor who prays in public. I say to you, if you would pray properly, pray in the privacy of your own home. Those who make a spectacle of praying in public will be given their worldly reward in the world. Only those who exhibit their religion privately are essentially true Christians. And again, I'm paraphrasing significantly there, but yeah, Matthew 6, verse 5 and 6 is what I'm specifically referring to there. I.e., Jesus basically had an admonition against virtue signaling, if you believe the book of Matthew. So maybe that doesn't count as lying, but it certainly does count as keep your fucking religion to yourself. And the only direct admonition against lying specifically is specifically in relation to perjury. So, fuck off. Moving on.
How can we exclude children from this commandment? Is telling a lie not a lie if we tell it to children? Obviously, no, a lie is a lie. Telling a lie, being truthful is so important. Read Ninth commandment, you shall not bear false witness. More insight about lies told to children during Christmas time. Read Christmas is not for kids. My God, what the fuck is this guy smoking?
And again, I'm wondering where you get this, because the "thou shalt not bear false witness" specifically essentially refers to don't accuse your neighbor of crimes or don't exhibit perjury. Now, granted, lying is bad. I would agree with that, but to what extent are we lying? Because in a Christian context, you have Nicholas of Myra, the eponymous Saint Nicholas, and in every other context, we have Odin and the Holly King and Grandfather Frost and the Yule Spirit and so on and so forth. So it really depends on what you mean by lying about Santa. Moving forward.
Yeah. Number 4, Christmas is not Christian because there are Christian holy days that Jesus himself kept, and Christmas is not one of them. Leviticus 23 lists festivals that God calls his feast. God's holy days were created by God for his people. The Bible records that Jesus Christ kept these festivals. Luke chapter 22, verses 15 to 16, and John chapter 7, verse 10. And more read hidden in plain sight festivals Jesus celebrated. Many around the world celebrate these special days every year to rejoice in and learn of their deep Christian meaning instead of keeping pagan holidays repurposed and labeled as Christian hundreds of years after the Bible was written. Why not keep the holy days found in the Bible?
So here's an interesting question for this, and this is going to sound very Godwin-y when I say this, but does that mean that you, sir, will start celebrating Hanukkah and such? Because here's something that I don't think many Christians would be entirely comfortable with, but in this context is no less inarguably true. Jesus was Jewish, and his only issue with the rabbis of his day was he essentially felt like they weren't being Jewish right. But he still kept most of the Jewish holy days. So are you and your Jewish brethren going to join hands and join, festivities with regards to holidays? Because if you do that, then some Christians are going to get very pissed at you because they are very, very obsessive about we are better than Jews because reasons. So good luck with that. And while we're on the subject, Hanukkah was also moved to coincide with more polytheistic festivals of light. So have fun having this argument all the way over again when you do finally realize that Christianity is very much a successor to or spin-off of Judaism. Anyway, moving forward.
Right. Grand Charles, New Year's Eve and polytheistic.
New Year's Eve appears to be mostly secular in nature. Um, I I've looked and I can't find any spiritual or metaphysical or religious reasoning to mark the first of the year, especially when you consider that they constantly were adding new months to the calendar during most of history. Like July is literally a month that was added to the calendar because Julius Caesar had an ego and wanted to separate himself from the previous month.
Mhm.
So New Year's is kind of mostly secular as far as I can tell by research. I might be wrong, but if you find anything to the contrary, please let me know because I've looked and I can't find anything. I mean, it is possible that New Year's Eve and Christmas or Yule stroke Saturnalia stroke whatever used to be part of the same holiday because like I said, in most polytheistic cultures, holidays lasted basically a month around their respective peak day. So it's possible that New Year's being in January means it's an extension of Yule or an extension of various other polytheistic cultures. But other than that possible, I could squint and make it work. I think New Year's is mostly secular.
I'm back. All right. Answering the question, is Christmas Christian? So getting back to our original question, is Christmas Christian? Let's answer this by asking four similar questions based on points above. One, is it Christian to worship Christ's birth on the birthday of the ancient sun god? Probably not, no.
I mean, if I'm not misremembering, Yahweh is a solar deity in most contexts. Like if you look at him in the full context of like the Babylonians, Sumerians, Assyrians, Canaanites, etc., all of the deities that may or may not have etymological and historical connections to him were both solar deities, sky deities, and storm deities, and also war deities. Um, so and war deities are very often solar or Martian in nature. So
Um,
fully informed, I'm not sure that would be an issue. That because Yahweh appears to be a very solar deity, but then again, I don't know.
mhm. Number two, is it Christian to keep ancient pagan worship practices alive by calling them Christian?
I mean, it depends on how stridently you need Christianity to encompass all good things.
Mm.
Like if in this very narrow, very it has to be Christian or it's by definition corruptive or corrosive, maybe not, but I don't think most Christians need Christianity to literally encompass all good things. I think many people are aware of the phenomena of the like tripart moral category system where there are moral things, there are immoral things, and there are morally neutral things. So even in the context of most Christians, I would imagine even internalizing all of this information would put Christmas squarely in the second category there, the morally neutral things rather than the immoral things.
Right.
Moving on.
Yeah. Is it Christian to lie to children about mythical figures' existence?
It sort of depends on what you mean by lying and what you mean by lying being or not being Christian, as we went over. And also how you feel about saints, I suppose, if you're that Christian. Moving.
Is it Christian to ignore the festival sanctioned in the Bible to holidays found nowhere in the Bible?
Enjoy working that out with the Jews, is all I'm saying.
Well, I also want to bring up the point that, I mean, other that kind of implies that other holidays are not allowed to exist outside of Christian beliefs, doesn't it?
Hmm.
It kind of implies that uh, uh, that other holidays that are not Christian. I'm not even specifically speaking of pagan, just in general, uh,
Mm-hmm.
aren't allowed to exist outside of Christianity.
Well, okay, I can kind of squint and make sense of that in the context that the word holiday literally comes from the word holy day. So if you're that stridently moralistic and that stridently like tradcon authoritarian about your religion, I
So
could sort of see that, but even still, like no.
the answers to these questions point to the answer to the original question. No, Christmas is not Christian. Never really was, to be fair.
Yeah, no, and once again, as much as I realize I'm making myself a meme by borrowing the Bernie Sanders phrasing of it, and by the way, Dragon Turtle, for as much as that made you uncomfortable earlier, I was kind of doing it to be sort of satirical and mock myself a little bit, but in it and also to be funny, like to borrow a phrasing from Bernie Sanders, no, Christmas isn't Christian, and that's a good thing. Or at the very least a a a thing that is not subject to moral shaming or otherwise, i.e., it's neither moral nor immoral. It's it is a thing that exists. But insofar as that thing that exists is qualitatively meritocratic, I call it a good thing. I don't need things to be moral in order to call them good. Moving on.
Consider the words of the man that Christmas is supposed to celebrate. All too well you reject the commandment of God that you may keep your tradition. Mark chapter 7, verse 9. This year, instead of celebrating Christmas, why not study the true festivals that God reveals in the Bible and learn about their deep meanings? No, Christmas is not Christian and never has been, but there are special days that are.
And again, enjoy working that out with the Jews because Jesus considered himself a Jew. And in fact, if you look closely to most of the Bible, it's very clear that if anything, Jesus considered himself a true Jew. And his main contention with the synagogues and rabbis was they weren't doing Judaism correctly. I do wonder how much the historical Jesus, insofar as such a person existed, would have wanted a new religion to spout around himself. Because normally when Jesus is referring to himself, like in the third person, he doesn't refer to himself very often with the Son of God. He refers to God as his father, but he also kind of refers to God as everyone's father in a lot of ways. Normally, when he's referring directly to himself in the third person, he refers to himself as the Son of Man, the son of humanity. So one wonders if, just like the Buddha, I kind of have my doubts that Jesus would have wanted a religion to venerate him. But that's neither here nor there. And no, that I'm not trying to shame people who do follow Christianity. I'm just saying, like, if Jesus is the example you're following, then learning more about him might be a good thing. And he probably wouldn't have wanted his own religion.
Also,
He
Don,
probably just wanted to reform Judaism.
also keep in mind, Don's best friend, hello, how you doing, is
Uh-huh.
actually, you know what, that feels disingenuous because I'm Christian in a very loose term.
Yeah, you're very lax in your Christianity, which again, thanks for not being the behead me for sorcery or try to convert me kind of Christian.
Ventura, how does the storm and sun go together unless you're just sky, period? I mean, that's in terms of like,
And that's also possible, but I mean, in the sense of like qualities we often see in solar deities throughout various different cultures, the mold of seeing Yahweh as a solar deity is seems to fit very well, especially because many of the beings he's supposed to be opposed to, whether it be Satan and the demons or whether it be his older enemy, which in the context of like the Old Testament was a being known as the Leviathan, those entities are either sublunar, which would mean under the purview of the moon, or are Saturnian, meaning of the underworld and of the essence of decay. So that would mean that like
oh,
from like a planetary association way or a planetary association sense, Yahweh would be either solar or Martian or Jupiterian in nature.
right. Actually, speaking of God stuff, sorry, I kind of want to bring this up just because I find it interesting and give us a little breathing room before we head into the last thing, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm sure a lot of people, because I've mentioned this before, but I am working on my own little crossover between Ruby and DC, where like I put certain DC characters in the Water Ruby and kind of retroactively fit them in there. Unfortunately, it's kind of spiraled into this larger thing where I'm somewhat retroactively rewriting certain parts so that my DC in Ruby can work. And that's kind of spiraled into me rewriting, creating an entire pantheon of Ruby gods because apparently they don't have them.
He created his own mythology because the show writing was so bad that they didn't include that as part of the world building.
Yeah.
And of course, I helped because that's usually what happens is he comes to me with a half-formed idea, I poke it, and then all of a sudden we have a whole new universe to play with.
But yeah, at some point I do plan on releasing this stuff on the Discord. Again, there's a link down below if anyone who hasn't joined it can join. Um, but yeah, and not to mention I'm also branching out to other parts because I never set out to rewrite Ruby, like full honesty. It just sort of happened. And if anyone who's a fan of Ruby here, you'll I'm sure you can understand why I ended up rewriting certain parts of the lore.
They half-assed the world building is the problem. And for those that don't know, I have very much the same feeling about the show Once Upon a Time. I love Once Upon a Time, but they shit the bed entirely when it came to like consistency of world building.
Eventual last interest point. Do you consider it bad, like for you? Do you consider it bad world building if there is no magic in the setting because no gods is a bit of a stretch for it?
I mean, I prefer worlds that have as many features as they can possibly have because the real world is three-dimensional and complex, so why wouldn't any fictional world that you wanted to be well-rounded also be? Um, it sort of depends on how you explain the paranormal or the preternatural in general. Like, there are ways you can do it, like, for example, the way Star Trek mostly does it with, like, psychic powers and like, higher beings that have, like, evolved beyond the need for physical existence and so on, like with the Q and so forth. But in general, I do think you need to have some non-strictly scientific aspect to a setting in order for it to be three-dimensional and well-rounded.
So I think you also keep in mind that the reason why I started to add gods into Ruby, and yeah, I watched bits and pieces, mainly clips and other people's reactions, so I didn't have to go to a website myself to watch the show Dragon Turtle. Um, yeah, it's weird. Like they introduce an interesting concept, but they never expand on it or develop it much. It's like lampshaded a bit, so it's weird like that. But Ruby is well, one, it is an anime setting, so it's science fiction plus. Well, it is mainly fantasy. I'm not gonna lie, but in a way, um, and I'll have more to talk about it when we get into December. Um,
January,
January, sorry, yeah,
because we're 75% of the way through December.
yeah. So I'll have things to say about Ruby in January when we get there. Because god damn, December just really decided to pull out everything.
We always make this joke. We go months without anything of substance to really talk about to the point that we like store up things to do when we don't have anything to talk about. And then the second we turn our backs and walk away, like if we do Halloween stuff in October or if we do Christmas stuff in December, then the world is just like, here, have all the news to cover. We're like,
Um,
we can't do anything yet, you motherfuckers.
and he died. Yeah, Monty Ulm died in between season 2 and season 3. I think mid production in season 3. So we have to finish it. And I'm aware of the shoestring, but honestly, I was fine, and I don't get what because I grew up on like TV shows that were really like Stargate, um, uh, Farscape, um, and reruns of Star Trek stuff. So I was used to things looking cheap or having like a shoestring budget, but they made up for it with like just the passion and the writing in those things. Um, and and the first couple seasons, you could really tell that there was passion for the project, and they were getting better as they went along. It kind of sucks that it has fallen, but it's what happens. I will say this. Um, you need a podcast, the Storm Search channel, an Overflow podcast. Yeah.
Hmm?
That Giant Turtle just said, like for the whole thing, like we always have like so much stuff to do when we get back to regular months.
Yeah, when all of a sudden we go from having nothing to talk about for months on end to having all the things to talk about and we can't.
That is true, Dragon Troll. With like the budget and stuff, it limited, and then I agree. But I will say this: I do think there are certain parts of the RWBY fandom, and don't get me wrong, I'm well aware of how fucked up the RWBY fandom can be and stupid. But there are certain parts of it that are actually doing pretty well. Like there's a YouTuber by the name of Celtic Phoenix who has gotten a lot of artists together and writers, and is basically rewriting the entire series currently. And it's really good. Like it feels like the actualized version of RWBY. To be fair,
Yeah,
um,
Once Upon a Time is very much that same way of like I love that franchise to death, but oh man, did they half-ass everything.
yeah. So again, I will talk more about RWBY when we get to a certain thing that didn't happen this month regarding that. Um,
hmm
Again,
Speaking of things that we didn't cover this month because holiday theming, we will get to the clusterfuck that is the DC Extended Universe right now,
yeah, well,
and of course how they did Henry Cavill dirty. Don't worry your pretty little heads, folks.
well, I'm not finished with the Dragon Turtle. Like I said, I'll post it in the Discord when I'm finished with it. Like as a PDF, you'll find it there in like the pitch room chat box. So, and for the record, anyone can post anything in there as long as it like is just something you've written. It could be chapters of a fan fiction. It could be pitches for a movie or something. As long as it's like something of written account.
Yeah, something to keep in mind though for when we finish Lionhearted and when we eventually do Avarice, you're probably gonna want to post the crowdfunding link in that same chat room when we get to that point in the process.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something I came across about a week and a half ago. The Grinch versus Santa, an original action comedy film. I was for the record, I was just bored and I just thought about the Grinch and I typed in YouTube the Grinch fan film because I was interested to see if anyone made anything like that.
You were probably looking for a better version of the mean one, weren't you?
Yes. I'm
Just
sorry. It didn't grab me. The trailer didn't fucking grab me. What do you want me to say?
just to show it off, and you're like, see, this is what they should have done.
Well, again, this isn't really a horror thing. It's an action comedy. I mainly just wanted to do this because like I thought it was cool and it could give us like some fun laughs and stuff.
You
Granted,
just had positive feelings, etc. Yeah.
yeah. Granted, because of the 20 seconds thing, we're gonna have to pause a lot. So
Yeah. Candy canes.
it's not.
How
Oh,
long is it, by the way?
6 minutes 19 seconds. So
Oh, that's not very long.
yeah. Okay, I will say this during trouble just to end off on the RWBY thing I brought up. The rewrite's gotten so expansive. I also had to retroactively rewrite the maidens as I was rewriting the gods.
I poked him again. Sorry, folks.
To be fair, that
Or
was
actually, no. I'm not sorry for doing it. I'm sorry that it made so much more work for Brainstormer.
well. Okay, to be fair, I had the idea originally. You just kind of helped me iron it out. And
hmm
then I also realized, based on the rewrites I have for certain gods that were already in RWBY, I also have to rewrite. And again, if anyone knows RWBY, I have to rewrite the story of the main villain Salem and Ozpin, who's like the mentor character in the show. So,
hmm
oh, I hate that I do this to myself, but it's gonna be. I hope it's gonna be a good thing anyway.
It usually is, and that's why as much as I regret making all this work for you, I always encourage you to do it.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Grinch versus
Yeah.
Santa.
Candy canes.
This is how. No, it's auto generated. I hate fucking auto generated, man.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah, candy canes.
Nailed that landing. What are you doing here?
I walked off the naughty list, Kris Kringle.
Come on, Jake Paul can't even get off the list. What makes you think you can?
Yeah, this is a few years old. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, that's a bit insulting to the Grinch, though. Like, as bad as the Grinch was, even at his worst, like, I think Jake Paul might actually be worse than at least the Jim Carrey Grinch that they're parodying here. Maybe I'm biased against Jake Paul, but in my opinion, Jake Paul is more deserving of being on the hypothetical naughty list than the Grinch.
Okay, that's an interesting question that Giant Charles has posed. One, I've been working on, when I have the time, world building a setting to eventually write something in. Do you mind if I post stuff in there for that sometime? Yeah, no, dude, that's totally fine. Like, seriously, like, the whole purpose of like the writing, the part I've made for like writers and stuff is so like we can. That's honestly, I was hoping I would get more feedback with the stuff I'm posting in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just again, you would have to probably make a PDF, and there is for some reason a certain limit in terms of the megabytes or something. I don't know. So
Discord plays merry hell with a certain amount of data.
yeah,
As we know. Anyway, moving on.
Hold on,
Candy canes.
Wasn't done. Will likely just be world building for a while. P.S. Should I avoid anything on the magic system until I'm able to read some books Dalton sent me? For all I know, he might love it or have a stroke at what I currently have.
In the immortal words of Uncle from Jackie Chan Adventures Dragon Turtle, you must do research. If for no other reason, then you'll probably end up liking it better once you have an idea of kind of what to work with.
Right. I think
and also, yes, it probably will save me a Spurg stroke.
Right. I also think you should. Well, you should also make sure to decide whether or not it's a soft magic system or a hard magic system. That's important too.
Which again would probably be useful useful thing to keep in mind for after you've done your homework.
Yeah.
I realized how awful and condescending that sounded, but I'm hard on you both because I love you both. Fuck off.
I've tried posting a Word document in there myself before. It doesn't. It only accepts PDF. So. Okay, hard magic system. Okay. Yeah. So.
And again, reiterating research.
Yeah. Again,
God, I love Uncle from Jackie Chan Adventures. He's one of my all-time favorite magic user characters in anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like only PDFs apparently. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah. Blame Discord. Discord is continuously wanting to screw with its users. Who knew?
All right.
Candy canes.
I also want to say I just dig the vibe of this whole thing.
I mean, I like it so far.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen the actor who's playing Santa before.
Well, he's a stuntman.
Did he ever act as a stuntman for Captain America?
I don't know.
Because I could have sworn I've heard his voice before.
I don't know.
I don't know if it was ADR'd somewhere or what, but it sounds familiar to me.
Anyway, shall we?
Candy canes.
Candy canes.
Is that the way to talk to someone who just saved Christmas?
You can't save something that you already stole. That's like calling yourself the hero for performing CPR on the person that you drowned. The CIA does that, and they get coal for Christmas every year.
But who's love me? I must be on the nice list for that reason alone.
You've always been on the naughty list.
Okay, I kind of am siding with the Grinch here, because like he did have a whole like personally edifying epiphany thing. Like I'd understand if he did this out of like cynical, like if he did this for the cynical reason of I want to be on the nice list, Santa would have an argument here, but the Grinch's reformation is genuine here, so I kind of am siding with the Grinch on this one.
I can see both sides, to be fair. I think I'm the unbiased guy here.
I mean, maybe I am a little bit in favor of the Grinch here, but that's again, it's sort of like it's sort of like if you rob a place, or rather, if you burgle a place, because there is a difference between rob and burgle. If you burgle a place, but then you return everything you burgled before anyone has a chance to notice that you burgled it, have you really done anything wrong apart from possibly breaking and entering?
You're weird. You realize that? You have a weird way of looking at things.
I'm aware. Again, morality is not my strong suit, but logic is. So
Okay.
I'm looking at this and based on whose argument makes the most sense, and I think Santa might be being a little bit stubborn here.
Probably. I'm not going to deny that. I'm just. I agree with Santa on the point that that the Grinch did effectively cause a problem originally.
Yeah, but
Now, yes, he did rectify it. He did still cause that. Okay.
I know, but another thing to keep in mind here is the metaphorical come to who Jesus moment that the Grinch had in between A and B here. Like again, if the Grinch were doing this as a cynical ploy to get in on the nice list, I would be on Santa's side. But the Grinch isn't being cynical. He's just going, "Hey, I did all this work reforming myself. Don't I get anything for that?" Which is a fair question. Anyway, moving on. Candy canes.
Grinch, and you always will be.
Take me off that dumb list, you ancient, oversized dwarf!
Tell you what, you green yeti. If you can erase your name off this list, maybe I'll let you slide.
Is that a promise, you old fart?
Cross my heart and hope to.
Now, see, again, the "and you always will be" strikes me as very judgmental on the part of someone who is supposed to be all about the Yuletide compassion.
To be fair, I do agree. Like, the story is rewatching it again. I do think the story could have been written a little better. It's almost like a death battle deal.
No, it is, and I like it. It's definitely a death battle who would win, Santa or the Grinch thing. But I'm still like, this particular version of Santa is not on my nice list as far as all things are considered, because it's
I get what you're saying. I think ultimately I agree with you. Looking at it from a technical perspective, they could have spent a little more time with the script to really make it.
The best compromise between my interpretation and your interpretation probably would have been something to the effect of, you didn't do enough this year to erase your name off the naughty list for this year, but if you keep working at it, you might have a shot at next year. Like, that would have probably been the most even keel he could have gone, is like, yeah, I understand you've gone through a personal metamorphosis, and that's all well and good and all, but you still did enough in the previous 364 days that it doesn't quite even out. So
Right.
keep working at it and try next year.
And he doesn't like that, and then they fight. Right. That seems more natural.
That would make sense.
Right. Okay. Question: is this Hermit Grinch or Hermit Inventor Grinch? And is this Jolly Santa, Wizard Santa, Norse Santa, or Norse Wizard Santa? Kind of Norse Santa, I believe, in some way.
Yeah, I could see this being quasi Kringle-esque version of Santa. I think they are explicitly going for the Jim Carrey Grinch. So, Junkyard Inventor Grinch is definitely, I think, what they're going for here.
Or they could be doing a mix of both.
I mean, it's possible, but the voice and aesthetic of the suit are definitely Jim Carrey-ish.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Okay. Also, that drop kick was cool.
I mean, everybody loves badass holiday icons.
Yeah.
Which, if we're gonna show for ourselves for a second here, wait until you meet the Tattermillion.
That name will make a lot more sense.
Like I said, note the condescending, mischievous smile I'm doing right now because it will make sense later. This is me doing the River Song-esque spoilers thing.
All right. Candy canes?
Yeah, candy canes. The Street Fighter parody is funny, although I almost wish they had done it entirely in video game aesthetic. That would have been cool.
Yeah. I'm fully aware that I think they are in fat suits.
Yeah.
But even though it's impressive how
It's impressive that they can be this level of badass wearing a fat suit because if Jim Carrey is to be believed, even the moderately skinny Grinch suit that he had was a pain in the ass underneath all the makeup and shit. So
what I'm referring to is the mobility and the just the mobility and the just the moves that they're doing, which
again, it's a lot of extra effort to carry that level of extra weight while you're doing a fight scene here.
Yeah. I think there's also one, I don't know if anyone knows this YouTuber, Tom Ska. He did one years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of those like early YouTubers that do like all those did like those fun kind of parodies and stuff. Or like short films. I don't know.
I have to disagree with you there, Dragon Turtle. Even as far as like badass Christmas movies go, I don't think Die Hard is as good as Krampus or even Violent Night. Because in addition to the John Wick-esque badassery, Violent Night and Krampus still were also caked in the actual lore and spirit of the season, rather than just taking place during Christmas. As much as I love Batman Returns, I can't in good conscience call it a Christmas movie, even if a large percentage of it does borrow from and take place during Christmas. Anyway, candy canes.
Right. Give me a second. I'm definitely getting the comedy.
Yeah, it's funny. Although I'm torn here because if this were slightly more magical Santa, this would have been over in 5 minutes. But if this were a more Batman-esque prepared version of the Grinch who had time to play with his junkyard laboratory there, this also would have been over sooner. So I think I want to meet in the middle and say I wish this had a bigger budget so both of the respective combatants could have been more powered up.
If anything, I can still
like Santa with all of his Santa powers and the Grinch with all of his junkyard James Bond shit.
Right. If anything, I still respect that one thing. They got a stuntman in prosthetics and a fat suit. And they are using shoestring budget in like their own filming in their own house.
Yeah, impressive. Though like I say, I wish there was at least like given how almost everyone can afford Adobe Premiere, I do wish there was slightly more effects going on here.
What do you mean?
Like Santa with his magic powers and the Grinch with his like uh junkyard MacGyver stick.
Ye- I don't. You know what? Whatever. I'm not going to cry because we'll be here all night.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Candy canes.
and games.
Got it! No! Ah! Rich man!
This really does feel like an epic rap battle of history type thing. I do wish there was a rap portion of this. Would have been funny, especially because they're both like known to take place in stories that involve rhymes. Nightmare Before or Night Before Christmas in Santa's case, and of course Dr. Seuss in the Grinch's case.
Yeah.
Candy canes.
Yeah, maybe a theme song, where they did do that.
Yeah.
Because Death Battle does that a lot, apparently. Like, have their own rhythm sword and stuff.
Yeah, like
Say this.
Grinch has the You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch song, and Santa has the Santa Claus is Coming to Town song, or Jolly Old Saint Nicholas. So you could have played a lot with that.
Right.
But I realize I'm nitpicking the shit out of this, and I'll try to pull it back a little bit. But
You seem to be having more fun than when we did the elf one last year. Or
the elf one bugs me
okay.
because it's like you
But I
could have done more with this if you had just done a little bit more homework. Anyway, moving on.
I was also going to say, like, action is easy, comedy is hard, and yet they have seemingly it's hard to make an action comedy. I will say this because I tried to make a short film like that once, and it's incredibly hard. So they're mixing both properties pretty.
It's why when something does manage to pull off like a horror comedy or an action comedy, it's more impressive. Like I'm far more impressed by Violent Night than I ever was by the fucking Menu. I fucking hated the movie The Menu. It was terrible.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. And while you're gone, I will check in with Dragon Turtle to see if he has any new editions. Nope, just the Die Hard thing. The Die Hard thing is the last thing I can see as far as Dragon Turtle's comments. If you commented after that, Dragon Turtle, I can't see it, but StreamYard is sometimes annoying with regard to this. So I'm not ignoring you, I just can't see anything after the Die Hard thing. There we go. Tangential question, what would you rather exist, Santa from Lord of the Rings style elves, and with Lord of the Rings style elves or Norse dwarves, yetis, or super techie? Honestly, I really love a version of Santa that is for some reason really in good with the Fae, whether it be because he's Odin or the Holly King or some other entity like that, or whether it's just because he's just that crafty and good as a magic user. I kind of would like to see that. Like he is just a human magic user, but for some reason he's a adept enough mage or practitioner to have a lot of alliances with the Fae, with like high AOC style elves.
I'm back.
That would be really cool.
All right.
Yeah, I was just answering one of Dragon Troll's questions.
No, I was here for when you were answering it. I wanted to listen to what you guys were talking about. So, yeah. So, Candy
Yeah. Candy canes.
Say, Uncle! Say, Rudolph just has really bad acne!
I really dig the effort they're putting into this.
Yeah, again, it's a very cool action scene. My only complaint is why is it that so many mediocre movies have like a $200 million budget when creative shit like this has to make do with a shoestring? That's not the right way around.
Maybe
In a sane world, this is what we would be blowing all of Hollywood's money on. Stuff like this.
Control, maybe a Santa who uses workshop as a way for Faye to secretly work off any debts against humanity. You wrongfully hurt a child, make some toys.
I mean, that's one way of going about it. I was just kind of playing with the what if Santa was really good at negotiating with Faye kind of thing. Also, maybe I'm biased towards the idea of Santa being a magic practitioner because, like I said, I was like 13 or 15 before I stopped believing in Santa. And I started studying magic when I was like 11. So for a lot of years, I asked Santa for magical supplies, and I was always really enamored with the idea that Santa was a magical practitioner.
Maybe he also set up an egregore of Christmas spirit to empower him with the faith of children of the world.
I mean, there's that, but that treads more into the Odin style territory or Holly King style territory. I would just rather that one of the bargains he made with the Fae that owed him shit was immortality, so that he can do this.
Sorry, I just got reading that and just remembered something that is incredibly difficult that I'm going to have to do for all the Ruby gods I was making. Make a list of aspects they represent. I mean, I got primary stuff, but they also, like, I'm aware that gods are more complex than general. Than our
Mantles, titles, names, and functions. That's the currency of the deity in metaphysical circles. That's why Odin is, or One Eye, is not to be fucked with, because the dude just constantly is accruing more and more fucking energy from all of his various names and titles and shit.
Now, if you guys also want to hint at one of the gods I made, don't forget the relationship web and family tree. Oh yeah, no, that's actually my that's the next thing I'm working on. I mean, I have it. It's actually pretty simple, to be completely fair. Like, I kept it pretty simple, not as. I mean, Ruby doesn't really have any different cultural interpretations, to be fair.
He's already started playing the game basically of who pairs up with who and who bangs who with regards to his gods.
Yeah. So it's I've kept it pretty straight. I'm not doing all the weird shit they've done in actual mythology, to be completely fair. Like, I'm not doing the Greek gods. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, the Olympians are just like, and I do specify the Olympians because a lot of the minor Greco-Roman gods I really like, and a lot of the primordial Greco-Roman gods I really like. But boy, the Olympians.
I mean, okay, not to say that they don't have different cultural interpretations. Ruby technically has that, but it's never really brought up. But also, some of the gods just have certain areas of influence in Remnant, at least.
The only of the 12 Olympians I tend to have like or respect for is Hephaestus, because it appears like Hephaestus just perpetually gets the shit end of the divine stick, and hashtag Hephaestus did nothing wrong.
One of the gods I'm really proud of making is effectively, and any God of War fans here, a samurai Kratos, basically. If anyone gets
Also Hades. I have no problem with Hades, because hashtag Hades also usually did nothing wrong.
Yeah. Samurai Kratos. Anyone who gets that, you'll find out how cool that is.
I do wonder if they'll ever, assuming that the God of War franchise keeps going, I do wonder if they'll ever get around to like the Shinto gods or the Taoist gods or whatever.
Apparently, they're done with the Norse pantheon already with only 2 games, which, that's fine.
I do wish they had took their sweet time with that more. I understand wanting to get out of like the Greco-Roman sphere, because part of the fun of God of War is seeing how he fares up against other pantheons and so forth. But I feel like the Norse pantheon could have lasted him a while longer.
Right. Hephaestus and Hades, except maybe Persephone, that is one thing depending on interpretation.
Yeah, it's like everyone else is just fucked beyond all reason with regards to the Olympians.
I think there's one that we can all agree that we just do not like, which is the goddess of hoes being Aphrodite.
Yeah, just like
I feel like I've been smited for that somehow.
Unironically, I could see Aphrodite being a quote unquote feminist goddess.
No, she's a hoe goddess.
Yep, and therefore I can definitely see, especially in Avarice, when we use Aphrodite for what we use Aphrodite for, we're gonna make so many feminists upset when we do that.
Hey, okay, so I want to get through this video more because it is fun and we could use fun.
Yeah, but candy canes.
Candy canes. I will say I was not expecting the acrobatics in the fighting.
I mean, good for. They are stuntmen, so I imagine they're gonna pull out whatever tricks they know. So
no, I'm impressed. Aphrodite isn't a feminist god; she's an e-girl goddess. All of the OnlyFans, booby streamers, and sexy cosplay.
Dragon Turtle, you seem to have forgotten how much crossover there is between ethos and feminists at the end of the day.
Yeah. But what I was saying was, just given how the characters were designed in this, with the fat suits and stuff, and the more heavy set, I assumed more brawler-like fighting styles than martial artists, or if it is a martial art, one that keeps your feet on the ground more or less. Like kickboxing or something like that. Which I
imagined Santa would fight more like a Cossack or a Viking, because snow, and also like in mythologically he's in that same, or if he had borrowed fighting tactics from like Inuits and stuff, people who fight in
cold weather.
Lots of big, heavy, furry.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm still impressed though, just because just the amount of effort it would be to do all those moves in those layers.
And I realize how pedantic I'm being for nitpicking the fighting style, because I'm sure no one other than someone like me would have put that much thought into should we give them each a specific fighting style. But I really appreciate when different movies will give
shit.
characters specific fighting styles and shit.
Okay. Sorry, Giant Troll. I didn't see that one. That's my bad. Wait, everyone? What about that one Hearthfire one? I thought she was also fine, and I'm not sure if Artemis did anything. I'm not too familiar with Artemis. I'm aware that she is the goddess of the hunt.
I mean, there is what she did to Axion, apparently.
You're gonna have fresh memory on that.
Artemis in the Greek pantheon, or Diana in the Roman the Roman pantheon.
Wait,
she was bathing in a stream and singing, and some mortal hunter became transfixed by her voice and kept following it and found her while she was in the middle of bathing, and she essentially caught him, accused him of being a pervert, and turned him into a stag to punish him for looking at her without her permission.
that's fucked. I'm not gonna deny that. I can somewhat understand it, but okay. I'm also aware that she was the reason why she's a virgin. Although I could be wrong on this. The reason why she is considered a virgin goddess. I'm aware of that. Because she was only ever in love with one man who died, which was Orion the Hunter. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I also thought that was something that's put into like popular culture.
No, both Athena and Artemis, and I believe there's another goddess who, because they're in Greco-Roman mythology, there are said to be 3 virgin goddesses. I think they might be. Is it? It can't be Hera, because I know she has descendants, even though I don't think many of them are with Zeus. But there are 3 virgin goddesses. One of them is Artemis / Diana, and one of them is Athena / Minerva. I just can't remember the other one. I think Hestia actually might be the third one. The third virgin goddess. Although in Hestia's case, I believe it's just because she doesn't want to be with anyone. In Athena's case and in Artemis's case, I believe there are stories explaining why they do want to be with people, but they're not permitted to for whatever reason.
Prometheus is kind of my go-to. I don't know why, but in a lot of stories I've written, I've actually had Prometheus added somehow. Not all of them, but some of them.
I mean, yeah, Prometheus is cool. He's literally the god of forethought or thinking ahead. So I can't fault him for.
The dude also gave us fire, which would.
I mean, in hindsight, that may have been a mistake, but I mean, he did it according to the myth. He did it because he loved and wanted humanity to prosper. So I can't fault him for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why. I have this weird fascination with Prometheus. It's weird to me.
Prometheus is my favorite Titan. But he doesn't count as part of the Olympians because he's a Titan, therefore he's the generation before them.
Okay, is there any truth to Artemis having some lesbian or I suppose bi with Orion undertones, or is that just a modern interpretation?
There is some truth to that, actually. I can't think of any specific examples off the top of my head because Artemis is not a goddess I've spent oodles of time looking into. I've spent more time getting to know her as Diana, partially because I did research on the origins of Wonder Woman, realized that Diana was based on the Roman goddess of the hunt, and I was like, I gotta know more about this. But that's
when you said that, I I immediately thought Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there though. But my point is that I can't think of any specific examples off the top of my head. However, yes, there does appear to be some precedent for the idea that Artemis preferred the company of women either equally to or more than she preferred the company of men, which might also explain why Wonder Woman is basically bound to a mythological version of the island of Lesbos. Although most of that has to do with the fact that William Moulton Marston was literally a first wave male feminist and wanted to write a female empowerment fantasy, but also wanted to presumably titillate his own desires by imagining a island full of super powerful, hot warrior women, which I can't fault him for, but male feminism, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Although I
Candy
will
canes.
say, without his, I guess, I don't want to say weirdness because it sounds disrespectful, but without his certain taste, we wouldn't have gotten a really cool character that has been developed over the many decades.
Yeah, I'm not disparaging him or his creative output. I'm just saying that if you actually look at the history of the character, a lot of the trademark aspects of Wonder Woman are mostly due to William Moulton Marston basically wanting to create a character who was his ideal woman, which again I can't fault him for. Although, for example, William Moulton Marston was into BDSM, and that's why one of Wonder Woman's weaknesses, I can't speak today, is when her bracelets get tied together. It's also why she carries a lasso, because William Moulton Marston liked BDSM.
Everyone knows that, dude.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm also aware they did a documentary film, right?
They did. They also did a biopic called Professor Marston and the Wonder Women.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The biopic. Anyway, Candy canes.
Yeah, candy canes.
Although I have to admit, I noticed that he threw it with the cane part first instead of the bottom of it, the Grinch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're throwing it like a spear, you got to go with the end of it.
Yep.
Handle part.
Has to be pointy.
Yeah.
They could have borrowed a trick from Violent Night and had them be sharpened at the end. That would have been funny too.
Although I do love the sword fighting too. Like again, like this is just very creative.
Candy cane fencing, because that's a thing I didn't know I needed in my life that I definitely needed in my life. Anyway, candy canes. Speaking of.
Okay.
Is it glitching, or is that StreamYard being slow with my phone? I think it might be StreamYard being slow with my phone.
I think it could be both, maybe.
Okay, as long as I'm not complete, as long as it's not just me.
Yeah, it's kind of moving slow, right? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think it does that. Kind of.
Okay. Either it's my phone, it's your computer being slow, or the video was actually just shot like that.
Oh, it's a slideshow on this end too. Okay.
Yeah, we will never know.
Yeah, sorry again. My computer's kind of crap. it's over a decade old.
One of these Christmases, I might be tempted to just get you a new computer.
Yeah, I really don't want you to spend that much on me, man.
I know, which is why I haven't yet. But one of these Christmases, I might just.
Well, if I don't buy it first.
Once I have a stable source of my own income, I might save up and get you one.
Appreciate the thought.
Anyway,
Well, okay, so
candy canes.
if it continues to be like slideshow, guys, maybe I could turn down the resolution. Maybe that'll help. I have it set to 720. I should set to 480. Again,
I think it's fine. It just was something I felt that was worth remarking upon because I didn't know if it was me or if it was you or if it was the actual video.
But yeah, if you guys want to see the whole thing without like the weird slideshow thing, again, I always have links to the things we cover in the description. It'll be the last one. So
be abreast of the source links, folks.
yeah, abreast.
All hail the source links.
Abreast, really?
Yes.
Why you gotta be why you gotta act like this new aristocrat at the moment?
Because that's just the way I fucking talk, and I'm not being pretentious about it.
Okay.
Besides, abreast is a really cool fucking word.
Yeah, just not a word normal people fucking say.
Yeah, but if you get to do things just because rule of cool sometimes, so do I fucking get to pull out cool words just because they're fucking cool.
All right, fair enough. Anyway, shall we?
Candy canes.
Candy canes.
Turn down. No. Audrey, don't do it. We already did the Hulk bit. It's not funny anymore.
I mean, with that song, yes, it is, Mr. Grinch. I hate to disagree with you. Also, he's not hulking out. He's Super Saiyaning, clearly.
God, I forgot about this part. Okay, let me check comments. All right, well now we have a full like. That looks pretty good. I also like that they kind of just like it's kind of a mixture of a few of the designs of the Grinch.
Yeah. And
Well,
I never knew Santa going Super Saiyan was the thing I needed. I'm glad I have it though.
Right. Okay, I got nothing to say, so we're just gonna we're going. We're gonna go.
Candy canes.
Thank you.
What the?
Super Saiyan candy
beating
canes.
you up? Oh, he's vegan.
I will say the guy playing the Grinch is. I think he's having a hell of a time.
Oh yeah, he's having fun, and it makes it easy to have fun along with him. And again, Super Saiyan Santa. Didn't know I needed that in my life, but
He's going
now I know.
Says Giant Turtle.
Hmm?
He's going super Kringle, says Dragon Turtle.
No, Super Kringle would literally be just going full on Odin on his ass. Which I also didn't know I would need, but now I need it.
For the record, well, you got magical power super magical power Santa.
This is true. I have a Super Saiyan Santa in my life, and that is a thing that I enjoy having in it.
I'm disappointed he didn't get a longer beard. Maybe go. It did. I mean, the Grinch did say he got bigger, so.
Yeah, it's a budget thing. I'm glad they put in. I'm glad they at least put in the effort to give us Super Saiyan Santa because why not?
Yeah. Anyway. I also like that they're adding in like the little sound effects here, or the onomatopoeias.
Uh-huh.
I'm so proud.
Also, the like badass like warrior song of Carol of the Bells was cool. Though that is probably the creepiest stroke most badass Christmas song in general. Carol of the Bells.
If you're going Super Saiyan, you need longer, different colored hair. Can't be Super Kringle and Super Saiyanta. Fuck up. I do not like puns when they come from Dawn, and I do not like puns from anyone. Okay, I hate puns.
I appreciate your pun, but on the behalf of Brainstormer on this special night, we have to stop for the sake of Brainstormer's Christmas sanity.
Okay. Candy canes?
Or would that be santanity? Because I'm sorry, I had to. Anyway, moving on.
I swear to God, Dalton, I am going to mail you a fucking boot up your ass.
I know. You're going to basically put me in intensive care if we ever meet up, just because of all the like the like forestalled beatings I'm owed from you.
So
And
many.
I won't blame you for that.
I'm gonna basically be Red Foreman up in that bitch. If anyone gets that reference, good on you.
Either that or you're going to go what's the guy's name from Nobody?
Hutch Mansell.
There we go.
Right. Anyway.
And I will respond to this by going full 5 from Umbrella Academy.
I just noticed that there are little presents within the kapow.
Yeah, again, it's a shame that this gets a micro budget, but every boring movie ever, like we got a sequel to Avatar before we got a high budget version of this. That's just not the right way around.
Anyway. Shall we?
Yep, candy canes.
Candy canes.
Let's have some fun.
I love this song.
I mean, you can see the crash mat that they have there, but again, that's fine simply because obviously if you're gonna what is this? I always forget this move. Like I'm aware of some of them, but if you're gonna drop a guy on a floor, like yeah, crash pad. Like I'm
Curb stomping or
No.
suplexing.
no suplexing is when you grab them from behind and basically bend them over to like it's all.
Oh, what you threatened to do to me that one time. When you jokingly said you could bend me over like a freaking lawn chair.
Fold you like a lawn chair.
Yeah.
I probably could, to be fair. Again, like you can clearly see the budget restraints here, but I don't really think it matters, to be fair, because you're having fun.
Yeah, again, it's supposed to be an over-the-top B movie. It's a little bit like, yeah, Violent Night had corners cut from here and there because it was low budget, but I defy anyone to care.
Okay, that's going to be a while, Dragon. He asked for when we're going to do the review of Way of Water.
January.
Yeah, it's January, but it's going to be like late January.
Yeah, whenever Brainstormer can actually see it, and after we already have shows in mind for the first 2 weeks of January. One for trailers that we've missed in the last month, and one for the clusterfuck that is DC.
Yeah, Curb Stomping. Yeah, Curb Stomping. I don't know. Have you ever seen American History X?
I believe so.
Yeah, well, Edward Norton's character tells the guy to bite the curb and smashes his head in with his foot.
Oh yeah, and then didn't they parody that same move in that one episode of Family Guy where Meg went to prison and then she comes home and beats the shit out of Peter and like does that to him with the like stairs,
Yeah.
breaks his teeth over the stairs.
Mm. Oh, that made me.
That was a bit like even by Family Guy standards that was a bit much for me. I always flinch a little bit when it gets to that part of that episode.
Mm. I like my teeth, so.
Uh-huh. And I don't take especially great care of my teeth, but I'd rather most of them stay in my head if that's at all possible.
Yeah. Anyway. Candy canes?
Candy canes.
The party's on, the feeling's here, but only comes this time of year. Celebrate having a wonderful Christmas time.
Okay, whoever was in charge of scoring this, you can impress upon me to give you eggnog if we ever meet in a bar. Because between using the Carol of the Bells when Santa was going Super Saiyan to using this song for like the like post-fight doldrum, I love this. I love this so much.
Anyway, Joe?
Yes, candy canes.
Celebrate having a wonderful Christmas time. Celebrate having a wonderful Christmas time.
Oh, any last words, Grinch?
Just one.
All right, the nose thing, right? Like, how does that go again?
Santa's nose thing?
Yeah.
And laying a finger aside of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney he rose.
Okay, so here, it also acts as like a turn off button for his power.
I thought it was like banishing him up the chimney, was what I was thinking, but
Well, it looked like he tapped him like on the center of his nose, not the side of his nose. So it could depend on what.
where he gets hit in it, presumably.
Yeah.
Anyway, candy canes.
Okay. Yeah, the guy playing the Grinch is just having the most fun.
Okay, good for you, Grinch. You got your name on the appropriate list. That's good. Happy ending. Though you did beat the fuck out of Santa, so I'm not sure you deserve it anymore.
Okay, we got like a minute left, so.
Yeah, candy canes.
Candy canes.
You lose, I win. I got my name on the list. I got my name on the list. Yeah. Suck it, Santa. Yeah.
Loading's not very nice, Grinch.
Okay.
I mean, sure, but weren't you gloating just a minute ago about how he would never make it onto the nice list if you had anything to say about it?
I got 20 seconds left.
Candy canes.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Ha!
Hey guys, I'm getting.
Oh shit, that guy's tall. Or,
Or the other one is short.
could be both.
I mean, they're probably both well taller than me, because if they can double the stuntmen, they're obviously not that short. But
You'd be surprised. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, there's
Yeah.
actually another 20 seconds, so.
yep. Candy canes.
Right.
I'm Eric Tryon. Thanks for watching.
If you guys want to learn how to kick a serious butt as Santa does, check out Utah Valley Martial Arts up in the link.
Yep, and let us know what two characters you'd like us to portray next. Ready for our next fight scenes? We're ready to move on. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can see everything that's going on with Skagum's Fighting Force, and we can keep going.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I'm curious. If this is a thing they regularly do, then I want to know what characters they've done. But that's neither here nor there.
Hold on.
Get to the good part.
In any case, it's very nearly midnight, so we probably should call it there then.
For one thing, that was made 5 years ago.
Hmm.
That video. It's actually the most popular video.
I'm not surprised.
Um,
I'm also kind of surprised that Death Battle hasn't done a Grinch versus Santa thing yet, or better yet, a Grinch versus Krampus thing.
Dawn's version would be better in my opinion. Regarding what, Dragon Girl, just for context sake, because I think we forgot what Dawn was saying, like at 11:38.
Hmm.
The nose thing, yeah.
Ah,
Where he's back, yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, yeah. I'm actually pretty tired, and I kind of want to get up early, so.
Yep.
So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Merry Christmas! And just for this one day, don't fuck off.
yeah.
Cheers, guys.